So you can catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan scratch it. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it. Catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it. What you know about classic music?
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's Retro Wrestling Review Series. We're baiting them out, the last two retros before WrestleMania. These are kind of last-minute retros. I mean, I say last minute, but I pitched these a couple weeks ago, but we didn't have these planned until a couple weeks ago. So the last minute, in my opinion. But I'm Owen the Birdman Finch, and I'm here with
Chris.
And today we're doing NXT TAKEOVER Stand and Deliver 2021. Well, I guess you could just call it NXT TAKEOVER Stand and Deliver, since it's the only Stand and Deliver under the TakeOver regime. But we'll talk about that later. So this was my pick, and I'll just kind of talk about the behind the scenes of why I picked this. So if you remember, Chris, I texted you a couple weeks ago and say, hey, let's squeeze in another retro. And I gave you three options. The three options were this show, the Raw after WrestleMania 31, or like a Hall of Fame. And this is the show that you agreed to. You wanted to do this show. And obviously, I was cool with it because we're here now. We wouldn't be here unless I didn't agree to it.
Yep.
But yeah, I figured it makes sense. We haven't done an NXT retro in a long time. And I think NXT deserves some love because NXT is doing Stand and Deliver this year, just regular. And, you know, I figured we got to give NXT some love because let's be honest, Chris, we haven't been giving NXT a lot of love as of late, deservedly so.
No love.
So I figured let's go back. Let's see if we can get ourselves excited for this year's Stand and Deliver, and watch the TakeOver Stand and Deliver. Boy, was I wrong, Chris. Boy, did I set NXT Stand and Deliver this year up for failure. Because let's just talk about it now. I thought I'm like, you know, usually when you watch a past WrestleMania or something, it gets you excited for this year's Mania and stuff. That typically happens. I thought that was going to happen when I watched NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. And that didn't happen. If anything, it made me not even excited at all for this year's Stand and Deliver, just because we're going to talk about it more later. This show is so stacked and it rules so much that Stand and Deliver, no matter what they do this year, is not even going to come close to touching this show. That's how much this show rules. So that I really think I set up NXT TakeOver this year's. Luckily, you didn't watch this show ahead of time. You're just going off based off memory, pretty much. But yeah, I really did a disservice to this year's Stand and Deliver. You know what sucks even more? I got to watch tonight's NXT, and I watched night 2 of NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. So NXT is going to really look like shit tonight now. And I'm watching the Raw after WrestleMania 31 right before NXT tonight. So yeah.
Watch it.
NXT is going to really NXT's grade is going to be really affected when we do WWE Aftershock this week. But before we talk about it, let's go through the financials and the behind the scenes, kind of what was going on around this time when it came to NXT. This is gonna be a longer one than usual because there's a lot of bullshit we have to go through. So at this time, this is our first retro in the pandemic, by the way, Chris, because the pandemic just ended. I mean, it's been over obviously for a while. It ended like in 2021, but we weren't really ready to go back and review and watch wrestling in the pandemic because we've had to sit through wrestling a lot in the pandemic. You were probably worse than James and I, Chris, because you watched like about every show every week live, and yeah, you really had to suffer through the pandemic. I think the worst out of any of us.
I did,
and yeah, you know. So I figured we would wait a while to do a wrestling show and the pandemic, and this is what we picked. So wrestling was obviously struggling during the pandemic, as every sport and everything was during the pandemic, and wrestling was obviously getting back on its feet. Because originally when the pandemic hit, WWE and AEW were the only show and Impact to a lesser extent were the only things really running shows for a while. Basically, if you wanted to wrestle, that was the only place you were going to be able to wrestle. And WWE, I think, had to transition the most of the pandemic because they had to do WrestleMania like right after the pandemic, which, you know, they really didn't have to, but that's a video for another day. But, you know, they basically had to do the first big show in the pandemic was WrestleMania. And obviously, WWE went through many transitions in the pandemic. They first it was just taped with an empty arena at the Performance Center, and then they went to the crowds where they brought in like a bunch of people from the Performance Center, and they played the crowd, and then they switched to Thunderdome like in August, right before SummerSlam, and basically that was WWE for a while. Meanwhile, NXT had to transition a little bit during the pandemic because NXT really lost. NXT was doing really well. They were going up against AEW Dynamite every week. And Wednesday night was the night to watch wrestling because AEW was obviously red hot. Even though everyone liked NXT, it was unfortunate for NXT to go up against AEW on Wednesday nights just because it was kind of being set up for failure a little bit because no matter what NXT did, if the main roster sucked, no one wanted to support NXT because it was a WWE product. So they wanted to support the competition pretty much. So, and obviously NXT was still like in a third brand. It was basically only being on the USA Network. NXT, I feel like no one will really talk about it. NXT really did deserve to go into the USA Network. We had been clamoring for it for a while. But the thing that sucked about it is it finally gets a TV deal when it's being used to just basically hurt AEW. And it wasn't Triple H. It was Vince that was trying to use NXT to try to stall AEW's momentum and everything like that. But right before the pandemic, Wednesday nights was the nights to watch wrestling. You could watch NXT or AEW or both if you wanted to. And I think when we were doing the wrestling rundown, reviewing both shows, a lot of the time I enjoyed NXT I think more than AEW. Just because I thought NXT was a great product at this time. Then the pandemic hit, and NXT really suffered. They had to basically transition also. And NXT basically kind of lost everything that made NXT great because they lost the crowd atmosphere in Full Sail. And, the Full Sail crowd was very dedicated at this time. They loved everything that happened in NXT. And losing that crowd really hurt them. And I think at first NXT was just it was the same thing where it was empty and then it would be Performance Center people in the crowd, and then they had to move from Full Sail to the Performance Center because I believe Full Sail, like the university just opened up and stuff, and this was still when COVID was at the highest thins and all that type of stuff where people were like high risk. And they didn't want to take a chance of the students there that would actually go to school there and stuff, catching COVID and stuff. So basically, NXT had to move to the Performance Center, which it became known as the Capital Wrestling Center for a while. And I think the first show at the Capital, when it was the Capital Wrestling Center, was Halloween Havoc. No, it wasn't Halloween Havoc. It was what was the name of that show they did? It was NXT TakeOver 31, I believe.
I think it was 31.
And then that was basically NXT. I actually kind of like the way NXT did it because it was half Thunderdome, half Performance Center crowd. But then
I
something
actually like the performance center talent in the crowd.
yeah.
I like that a lot. I hate when they moved away from that.
Yeah,
It made it seem like it's real.
Yeah, but I liked what they did. They did. I liked that NXT basically did both. They did the Performance Center crowd and the the Thunderdome. So it's cool. Because I liked Thunderdome. I think it visibly looked good. But the thing that sucked was the crowd didn't feel organic, and obviously because there'd be people sitting there for a while. And then so I like that NXT blended the two together. But then something magical happened. We finally got a vaccine. I think vaccinations started coming out like late December, early January. The unfortunate thing about it, though, is because the vaccines was they didn't have a lot of vaccines at this time. Only a few people could get it. I think it was like if you had high risk or if like you were like over 70, you got a vaccine. I remember this because my grandparents are obviously in their 70s, and there'd be times where family members and stuff had to like wait on what I have a feel. I don't know if you've had to deal with this, but they had to wait like on the website for appointments to open up. They would have to call and be on hold for a while. It'd just be a whole big thing.
We cheated the system.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Maybe do you want to tell that story since you probably won't get another chance to tell that story?
We said that my cousin went on, and I wouldn't say it's like cheating the system, but it's like we got appointments faster because we went to like different states.
Oh, that makes sense.
State and then like, or something like that. I forget how she did it, but like, then it was like, okay, now select your store, and it was like CVS in Quincy or CVS in whatever.
Yeah.
And then that would be like where you went. They would get appointments that way. I think that's how she did it. I forget how she did it, but like it was like from Alabama or something or whatever. Some weird thing that she did.
But then we had a magical thing happen for NXT. And for WrestleMania weekend in general, because this aired during WrestleMania weekend. It wasn't a lot, but they were allowed to have some fans in attendance. Because I think you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Super Bowl was like the first like sporting event to have like somewhat of a crowd in attendance. They had
in
some
February.
fans, and some fans there. So it left up hope that I think everybody thought that originally there was going to be enough vaccines out because it was in February. WrestleMania was going to be because WrestleMania was actually later last year if you remember than it was. It was like April 10th. So I wonder if WWE tried doing that. I'm just guessing here, by the way. So that way they were hoping that like enough vaccines would come out, so that way they could have a full attendance. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but
they still got like a lot of people in there though.
Yeah. So NXT, we're able to get it was still Thunderdome. We'll talk about that later, but like you could tell like the people that were inside were actual fans because it wasn't the Performance Center crowd. There was probably some Performance Center people there, but you could tell there were like somewhat legitimate wrestling fans like in the crowd.
Yeah, they were.
Which was good. So yeah, this is cool stuff. Something unfortunate that happened though is I say unfortunate, but I think it was a good thing at the time. But when you see what happened with NXT, it ended up hurting NXT, the black and gold one, anyways. Is this was going to be because they had this on 2 nights. One night was Wednesday and one night was Thursday, and this was going to be the last time that NXT went up against AEW on Wednesdays. NXT could obviously never pull out the ratings due to the pandemic, and AEW was still like a hotter product at this time because NXT's hands were also tied at this time because and it was NXT aired in Florida all the time, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get too political, but let's just say if you lived in, I never went to Florida, but a lot of people say if you went to Florida during the pandemic, it was like a different world when you went to Florida during the pandemic. So and obviously Vince, when it came to the pandemic, was very stubborn. Like if you remember.
Oh yeah, he was.
And some people like in the PC and stuff, like apparently were stubborn. Like they weren't getting tested. So I'm pretty sure like they would do. There'd be a period of time where somebody would test positive and they would have all like the NXT really couldn't book like a big storyline or anything like that. I mean, AEW had this problem, but I feel like AEW also did. They weren't live every week either. They taped I believe they were live every other week, so they were able to at least craft out storylines, and they were better about testing at this time. NXT, like, I remember they would have like this big storyline, but then someone would test positive for COVID, and they'd be gone for a while. And obviously, because some of the people too were like out of the country. Like obviously, if you remember Pete Dunne in the beginning, he got stuck in the UK, so he couldn't be there for a while. Jordan Devlin was the cruiserweight champion at this time, and they had to basically make this whole tournament due to the pandemic and everything like that. So I think that's also what hurt NXT. They also couldn't sign any talent and really use the performance center like they wanted because of everything that was going on. But yeah, so this was NXT basically lost out to in the ratings to AEW. So they had to basically move to Tuesdays, which I thought was necessary. There was really no reason for Wednesday Night Wars ever to happen anyways. I think NXT was better off just being on Tuesdays anyways. Because obviously they ran trials where I think NXT had to move to Tuesdays like in late 2020. And they did like one episode on a Tuesday and another episode, and it was much more beneficial to both companies anyways. But this was going to be the last episode in the Wednesday Night Wars. At least the night one at the NXT Takeover. By the way, what a last episode that we had, because I'll give you a quick trivia. Do you remember what episode of Dynamite? You can say just what the main event was that NXT Takeover Stand and Deliver went up against.
I honestly don't even remember.
This was the episode where the Elite got back together as heels when John Moxley and I think it was the Young Bucks faced Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers. It was that episode they went up.
Oh, it was that one? Okay.
Yeah. So, huh?
The episode that I thought was stupid.
Yeah. So actually, I think it's the episode that like hurt your fandom for AEW forever. I think you've been grouchy at it ever since.
Yeah.
So that's that episode. So this episode of NXT Takeover Stand and Deliver is significant for another reason for you. So, but yeah, so I think that's about all the behind the scenes everything. I know it was a bit longer one because we had to talk about stuff that wasn't wrestling for a change. But yeah, it just sucked for NXT. I still thought NXT was putting out like a really good product every week though.
Oh, they absolutely were. They
were definitely killing it. It's unfortunate because we'll talk about it later on in more in depth, but this was basically like the last few months of the black and gold NXT. Because they would obviously switch the 2.0 era pretty much right after the pandemic ended, which really sucked. But we'll talk about that some more later. But going through the actual like financials of the show. So this show took place on April 7th and April 8th. It aired in Orlando, Florida, and the venue was the WWE Performance Center / the Capitol Wrestling Center, and the attendance was 500 total for each night. Obviously, that doesn't sound like a good number, but if you think about it, the Performance Center, like we talked about before, isn't that big anyways, and obviously it was still like in the pandemic. Because we talked about it, the pandemic was definitely winding down at this time. But, we still had to get through, like, the final stretch of the pandemic because I wasn't even vaccinated up until, like, the day after WrestleMania, pretty much. So, at least this year anyways. And as you guys know, other than, like, the people in the medical field and stuff, James can attest to this. I definitely suffered the most in the pandemic because I couldn't go see anybody during the pandemic. So, I don't think Chris, we saw each other until NXT Takeover in your house like later that year pretty much. That's the first time we saw each other like in person. The first time James and I saw each other in person, I think he came over for like the AEW Dynamite when it would have been I think when Moxley fought what's his name for the title. It was that old guy that what's his name? It was like he like defended the IWGP United States title against
Yuji Nagata.
Yeah, Yuji Nagata. So And I think then the first time I saw my friend was like that same week too. Like it was just you know, I'll say this on I won't say him by name, but the one good thing of the pandemic is I didn't have to see another friend that annoys the crap out of me for like over a year. It was awesome. It was the best. But
You miss him.
I don't miss him now. But anyhow, let's go through the actual show now and stuff. We've kind of talked enough about it and stuff like that. Some exclusives that took place that were pretty significant. They did like if you remember, I don't know if you watch it live, they did like a stand and deliver like press conference where it was kind of like a version of like Triple H of like the media calls that they do before NXT TakeOver. This one was kind of cool though, because it was like Wade Barrett and he had all the guys that were in like featured matches of the show and they all like answered questions. This is very significant because I don't know if you know this, Chris. They actually mentioned Dave Meltzer like on a WWE program, like pretty much openly mentioned like Wade Barrett says this is from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer. It was really cool. The best person that answered the questions was like Finn Balor because Finn Balor was because everyone obviously was in character, but like Finn Balor, if you listen to ever him answer questions, he's very like he answers the questions like very basic sometimes. Like one of the questions that was asked was like, "What do you think of the similarities between you and Karrion Kross?" Because he wrestles Karrion Kross on the show, and Finn Balor just goes, "Yeah, we both have had injured shoulders, but there's other things that are different. We both look up at the sky we both have two eyes and we're both wrestlers. That's also our similarities." Like Finn Balor was the best doing that interview and that type of things. So it was awesome. Then it showed the bump. They did like a takeover stand and deliver preview special of the bump. It was hosted by Caleb Braxton, Evan T. Mack, Matt Camp, and Ryan Popola. They just brought in various people and they talked about the matches at NXT Stand and Deliver. They brought in Triple H and Shawn Michaels since they were like the two people running NXT at this time. Luckily, thank God, Shawn Michaels wasn't booking anything at this time, so that's great. They brought in Raquel Gonzalez to talk about like her first like title match at TakeOver. They brought in LA Knight. They brought in Karrion Kross and Scarlett, which that was kind of weird because Karrion Kross was in character, but Scarlett was in character, but like also acting like herself in real life. So that was kind of weird. Who else did they bring in? They brought in somebody else. I forget who it was. They did something cool here because Matt Camp, Evan T. Mack, and Ryan Popola were at the WWE warehouse where they have all like the memorabilia and stuff, and Caleb Braxton was just at her house because she was obviously in Orlando for WrestleMania week and just couldn't really be there and stuff because they were in Stanford obviously. And Matt Camp took us around like the WWE warehouse where he showed us some like NXT memorabilia, and this is significant because right after this, they would I don't know if you ever watched it, Chris, but on A&E they would air that show where like a legend would go out and try to find all their stuff. Like it was like a version of I forget what it's called, but like they would try to find all the memorabilia to go to put in like the WWE warehouse and all that type of stuff.
Oh no, yeah.
I
know you're talking about.
And what's significant about it is that's the first appearance ever of the greatest professional wrestler on earth, Top Dollar. That's his first appearance ever. So,
God,
you love him. He's the best. Don't admit that. So that was cool. That was the bump. It was a cool episode to watch. For career retrospectives, obviously Caleb Braxton's in the same position that she's in back then. Matt Camp has become one of the co-hosts of Raw Talk and the SmackDown Lowdown. Ryan Popola does the same thing. And Evan T. Mack doesn't do much with the company anymore. I don't know why. I kind of stopped watching the bump, so I don't know when he stopped showing up. But he doesn't really do much with the company anymore. He's just kind of hanging out and just a wrestling fan now. He's just a normal guy now. So, cool, normal guy, Evan T. Mack. What a cool guy he is. So,
is he though?
Probably not. He did say he liked WrestleMania 9, so I don't know how cool he can be. So let's go through the actual show now. We had night one. Night one took place both on USA Network and Peacock. It's kind of weird. So you can tell me because you actually watch these shows live. I couldn't watch them live because I went away like during this time, which was the worst time to go away. It was during WrestleMania week, but it was either that or not at all. So I didn't watch this show until I came back. What version did you watch? Did you watch the USA Network version or the Peacock version?
I think I watched the USA Network version.
Okay, because I watched it on because I didn't even mention this. This is when WWE had in the United States had just moved to Peacock, pretty much.
Oh, you know what they did? They did. Night 1 was USA, and night 2 is Peacock.
Okay, yeah, but they said on the show that it was USA and Peacock at the same time. So
yeah, it was like night 1 was solely on USA Network because I checked to see if it was on Peacock night 1, but it wasn't.
Okay.
It was just USA, but I think they posted it afterwards.
Yeah.
But night 2 was solely on Peacock.
Yeah. So I've only seen it on the Peacock version, which if you watch the Peacock version, it's a bit weirder because of when they go to break and stuff, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, this was cool. And you know, it's kind of cool. I mean, NXT always even though they did Fastlane a few weeks before this when they launched, NXT's been kind of like the redheaded stepchild because they're always like the first. They've been like the first in when WWE switched over to the network / Peacock because Triple H talked about it when he was on the bump. If you remember, the first show ever on the network was an NXT show. It was a rival, so that's kind of cool how that happens. So let's go through the show now. We have 2 nights of this to cover, so we're just gonna start getting right into it. We had the pre-show. We had the host, Sam Roberts and Jimmy Smith. This is pretty cool. Obviously, Sam Roberts doing a quick retrospective. He basically does the same thing where he comes in for like a panel or something. I think he mainly just does the NXT ones now. He hasn't done like a main roster one in a long time, which I really don't complain. I really don't complain about. I don't really enjoy him all that much, anyways. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is Sam Roberts' like first appearance since he had like a shaved head because if you remember, this was like when it was fairly new. This is kind of cool though to look at like a retrospective because Jimmy Smith. This was like, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Was this the first time he did like anything with WWE?
I think it was.
So this was kind of cool that they got Jimmy Smith because he was very well known in like the UFC and MMA world. And a few weeks later, Jimmy Smith would be the lead play-by-play guy on Raw. Now you could correct me if I'm wrong. Was he after the Thunderdome era? Was he brought in during the Thunderdome era? Or was it kind of like right before? Because I know he was brought in. I remember because Tom Phillips was the lead play-by-play guy on Raw. He was replaced, and I remember it wasn't Jimmy Smith that replaced him right away.
It was Adnan Burke.
Yeah. So was he? And I remember
near the end because he came in on. I just kind of looked it up just right now. It was May 26, 2021 when Jimmy Smith was named play-by-play commentator for Raw.
Yeah, so he was like the last, probably 2 months doing the Thunderdome era at this point. Then,
yeah, roughly, yeah.
Because the Thunderdome era ends in what, July 2021?
Yes, because I think it was like July 22nd.
Yeah,
because then they went to it was July 16th. It was somewhere around there.
Okay,
because they went to Houston.
Yeah. And Jimmy Smith would be the play-by-play guy, the lead play-by-play guy for Raw up until like last fall. I think it was October. It was right before Extreme Rules that he was no longer the play-by-play guy. Yeah, and he doesn't do anything now with WWE. So I miss him. I wish they wouldn't have gotten rid of him, but they had to move on at some point. I don't know what he does now, but he's just probably being a cool, huh?
I don't think he does anything. Right now. I think he does MMA stuff, but not like anything crazy.
He's just being a cool guy now, so that's he's allowed to be a cool guy.
Am I allowing that?
Yes, you are. Come on, you like Jimmy Smith, so let him be a cool guy.
I do like him.
So let him be cool. Then we had the comment
released.
Yeah,
I thought he was great.
I know. Yeah, I thought they would have kept him around, especially since you'd think Triple H would have kept him around, especially too.
Because I mean, it's as much as I like Kevin Patrick, it's kind of a step down.
Yeah,
from Jimmy Smith.
I think that's why a lot of people don't like Kevin Patrick, because we talked about this when we did the State of the WWE address, like how he was going to struggle to get fanfare because he has to basically follow Jimmy Smith's commentary role pretty much. So, going through the actual speaking of commentary, going through the commentators of the show. This is just for the kickoff matches. The hosts and the commentators and everything stayed the same throughout both nights of these shows. By the way, I'll just say that now. It's Mickie James and Vic Joseph are the commentators on the pre-show. I typically wouldn't say this. This is very significant because I think this is the last time Mickie James shows up until obviously the Royal Rumble in 2022. Before she gets released, and obviously there's that famous story where they give all like her wrestling gear or whatever she left behind like in a trash bag and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So this was Mickie James's last thing she did right before she got released. I mean, I feel like it was a surprise, I guess, when Mickie James got released, but I don't really think anyone was really truly surprised just because Mickie James had been kind of being phased out anyways around this time. So because they're just mean. Very mean.
It was nice to do that.
Huh?
It was nice of them to do that.
Very nice. Very nice and very mean. So yeah, we've done it like a big career retrospective before on Mickie James. You can watch New Year's Revolution 2006 for that. Vic Joseph is basically still the lead play-by-play guy in NXT. I would say he's worse now than he is back then, but that's just because of who he's paired up with now, as we talked about before.
Come on.
You know I'm right. You know I'm right.
Come on. He's the best commentator ever. Can't make up his mind. He can't pick who he likes. He flip-flops all the time.
Doesn't be
quiet. A5.
Don't forget he doesn't shut up either. Don't forget that's good. Don't forget he doesn't shut up either. That's the most important part.
No, he doesn't. He just keeps talking. That's the best part, though.
Next, though, they did this throughout the show. Samoa Joe, he had just transitioned over to commentary full-time because he was injured like right before the pandemic, and they needed someone to come in and fill in the commentary role because let's just say they didn't want to use Joey the King Lawler on Raw anymore because he made a really bad line, like racial line, that like offended a lot of people. So they brought in Samoa Joe. Also, because Lawler was very high risk of the COVID and stuff anyways. So they needed someone to fill in that role, and it was Samoa Joe. It kind of sucked because Samoa Joe, I think by this point, was totally ready to come back in a wrestling role, and they just wouldn't have him come back to wrestle because, one, they didn't have anyone to take his spot on commentary. At least they thought so anyways. Also, too, it just they just didn't want to have him come back to wrestle, but Samoa Joe interviews various wrestlers throughout these shows. He starts first with Tommaso Ciampa, where he talks about the NXT United Kingdom title match he has coming up. Tommaso Ciampa talks about, I'll break down the storyline later on too, but he talks about how Walter was right. He has changed, wrestling isn't the main focus anymore, but he has a lot of other focuses, but wrestling's still a big goal of his. He talks about, Samoa Joe asked him what his strategy is against Walter, and he said that he's going to be really aggressive against Walter. Walter's someone that he's never faced before. And then he talks about how if he wins the NXT UK Championship, that it would be a new step direction for him in his career because he would get to go wrestle a whole new crop of talent that he hasn't been able to wrestle before. And that was pretty much the interview. He interviews Walter right after this. These were all aired earlier in the day. And Walter talks about being the most dominant NXT UK champion. He talked about how he lost some time doing his title run because he was sitting at home for a while during the pandemic. So he wants to make up for that lost time. He talks about how if he was to lose the title, he would have to think about his next career direction because he's not ready. He's not sure if he's ready to give up the UK wrestling scene yet. Because obviously this was a big thing for Walter at that time where he didn't want to wrestle in America. And then he talked about how he's going to destroy Tommaso Ciampa. And prove that he's a force to be reckoned with. Your thoughts on these interviews?
I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah.
That was true, though, at the time, though, as he was known as at that time, Walter.
Yep, I could say that now.
He didn't want to move to America.
Yeah.
His big thing was he didn't mind doing matches in America. He just, at the time, he was married to his first wife, and he wasn't and he wasn't keen on leaving her in Germany. I think he was living at the time, and so it was just easier for him to be on the UK brand instead.
Yeah. Then we had they brought in Arash Moaxi. I don't know how to say that name, but he's a big person in the UFC. He gave his thoughts on a few matches and things like that. He was fine. It just wasn't Pat McAfee, so I maybe hate him instantly. I wanted to see Pat McAfee, and he was taking away Pat McAfee's spot. So you don't do that to Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's the GOAT. You don't do that.
Man,
Then LA Knight gets
it's
interviewed.
real.
Hey, you know I'm right. Then LA Knight gets interviewed, and he talks about being the last guy in the Gauntlet Eliminator, and he said that he's going to win that match, and he's going to win the North American title the next day, and that's not a statement. That's just a fact of life. Yeah, awesome interview here by LA Knight. What did you think of this?
That was great. This is one of his first appearances too.
Yeah,
he's still relatively new to the scene. Well, not new because he had been previously in WWE as a Slate Randall in NXT fucking years prior before Impact.
Yeah.
So I think this was he had just come back not long before this.
Correct. Then we had the first match, the only match on the pre-show. It was Toni Storm versus Zoe Stark. I don't think this was Zoe Stark's debut, but she had been new to the company at this time. She had just shown up at NXT long before this. Toni Storm, if you remember, had just turned heel back in the fall and stuff, and she had just come over to NXT because she was supposed to go over NXT right before the pandemic, but then the pandemic just shut everything down, so they had to basically delay her move over to NXT, and she turned heel. The heel turn wasn't necessarily bad. It was just kind of random because I think they were slowly turning her heel. But this is a pandemic problem because the pandemic shut everything down. It just felt random because it had been a while since she had been on TV and everything like that. So, this was a good match here. They both start chain wrestling each other. Zoe Stark gets the best of Toni Storm throughout the beginning portions of this matchup. Eventually, Toni Storm takes control. She gets a really good bridge German suplex onto Zoe Stark. She gets a really cool suplex onto a double underhook power bomb, but it gets kicked out of. Zoe Stark mounts a comeback. She hits a suicide dive to the outside. She hits a bridge German suplex herself, a missile drop kick. And eventually, Toni Storm goes for Storm Zero. And Zoe Stark counters it into a roll-up, a victory roll. And Zoe Stark wins. And it was a big surprise at the time because nobody expected Zoe Stark to win because she was the rookie at the time. And yeah, if you remember, do you remember how bland and generic Toni Storm's heel theme was at this time, by the way? How bland it was? I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
But it was really bland.
But this was from her UK theme, which was awesome.
Yeah. But this was a good match here. I give it 3 stars. Good stuff. It was a good victory for Zoe Stark. I'm pretty sure after this they would do a rematch. And Toni Storm would win that match, and it led to Toni Storm teaming up with I forget who I think she teamed up with Aaliyah at one point to take down Zoe Stark and Saraya when she not Saraya but Sarai or whatever her name was. Sarai. But anyhow, what did you think of this match?
I thought it was good. They used to do that. They don't do it ever anymore. Pre-show matches.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. It was a solid way to start the show. I give it 3 stars.
Going through some career retrospectives. I'll do Toni Storm first, but Toni Storm would basically get called up to the main roster during the draft later in the year. She would get drafted to SmackDown. She didn't do all that much on SmackDown. She was supposed to face Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title at day 1, I remember. But then she wanted to leave the company because she didn't like the way she was being utilized. So I think they did the match on SmackDown, I think, instead of, and basically wrote her off that way. And then she left the company. She showed up in AEW. She was one of the finalists in the no, she was in the semifinals actually in the Owen Hart tournament. And then she didn't do all that much for a bit. She won the I'm pretty sure. No, she didn't win. I'm trying to remember. She challenged Thunder Rosa for the AEW Women's title, and then I think she was meant to turn heel and win it from Thunder Rosa, but then Thunder Rosa was injured, and she won the interim title in a 4-way match at All Out, and then and we found out she became like she actually was the champion because they basically realized Thunder Rosa wasn't coming back anytime soon. So they basically just said, "Oh, just kidding. You were actually the real AEW champion." But she had like already lost the belt by that point when they made that decision, so it didn't really mean anything. And then she okay. And then yeah, she challenged for the title. She won the vacant one, and then she failed to win back the title. She turned heel with Saraya, and now Ruby Soho, and has formed what's the name of that stable now in AEW?
The Outcasts.
I was gonna say the Rascals for some reason. I don't know why. And yeah, she's just a heel now. So she's a heel again, by the way. So that's cool. And then as for Zoe Stark, Zoe Stark pretty much came into NXT kind of at a bad time when they were going to go through that transition period. She won the NXT Women's Tag Titles with Io Shirai later in the year when they beat The Way. And then it's kind of weird because she was I think they won the belts like when NXT would transition, like right before it transitioned to the 2.0 era. And then they lost the belts in the ladder match at Halloween Havoc 2021. And then I think she got injured in like that match. And then she was out of action for a while. She returned last year. And then she failed to win the NXT Women's title. She teamed up with Nikita Lyons to try to win the NXT Women's Tag titles again. And then because Shawn Michaels doesn't like tag teams, he broke up that tag team. And then now she's just a bland, generic heel now. So that's the career of Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark's career has been interesting in NXT because...
what a fucking career.
Yeah. She's always come in when NXT transitions and all that type of stuff, too. So... next, MSK get interviewed. They talk about how they look forward to winning the NXT tag titles and how they... the Grizzled and veterans tried to take them out by injuring their hand and all that type of stuff. So they said they're not going to let that happen and they're going to win the belts tonight. Then Mickie James chimes in. She gives her thoughts on the NXT Women's title match coming up because it was going to main event. And then Samoa Joe interviews Raquel Gonzalez. He talks about... he asked her about like what her career has been like in NXT. She said that it's been a very fascinating career because she went from not being on the show almost a year ago to being like one of the founders, being like one of the big stars in NXT. She talks about all of her big wins before this, and then she talked about she's going to win the NXT title, or women's title on this show. And then later Samoa Joe interviews Io Shirai. She talks about how she's been a dominant NXT Women's Champion, and she wants to be known as one of the greats by beating all the big names that NXT's ever had. She talks about how the reason she picked Raquel Gonzalez is because she looks up to Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio always beat all the big guys and made himself an underdog. So she wants to follow in Rey Mysterio's path. And she talks about how she's going to retain the NXT Women's title. Your thoughts on all these interviews and things like that?
I think they're pretty good. I didn't, it set the tone for the main event. I like it.
Yeah, it was good. Then we had the actual show itself of night one. We had the commentary team of Wade Barrett, Vic Joseph, and Beth Phoenix. Wade Barrett had just returned. He returned like right after NXT TakeOver 30. And he was on commentary because it was funny too, because this is how NWA screwed themselves. I want to talk about because he was actually doing commentary for the NWA, but when that shut down, Billy Corgan made a big error and basically just told all of his wrestlers that like, hey, you don't have to stand by these contracts, and that screwed up NWA really bad because they lost the two of the big stars in LA Knight and Wade Barrett. Because if you remember, LA Knight was in NWA like right before he signed with WWE, and Wade Barrett was on commentary. And then Beth Phoenix, she had been on commentary for a while. This is significant because this wasn't her first in-person commentary, but she had just been back because she was doing commentary, if you remember, like via Zoom and all that type of stuff, like before this and everything like that. So there you go. We had the national anthem. I can't remember the person's name, but it was performed. Let me see if it tells us. It doesn't tell us, of course. But it was performed by the same person that did the Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance, I believe, at WrestleMania 34, and that it did the Evolution theme song at the opening of the show. And it was actually the national anthem. She just did it like on a guitar riff and all that type of stuff. So that was cool. They haven't brought her back since then because they just haven't. Because NXT's rebranded and all that type of stuff. And the set looked cool. You do have to kind of forgive the set because it's still the pandemic. They basically just did the kind of like, I think what they wanted to do for the WrestleMania 36 ad, where they had like a pirate ship logo like over in the corner. And then they had like it was basically the WrestleMania 36 set what they wanted. So but just done in the PC and all that type of stuff. And like I said, it was real fans and half real fans, half Thunderdome. Did you ever join Thunderdome? I wasn't sure if you did. Okay. I wasn't sure because I would have asked you about it. But then we had the opening match on the show. It was Pete Dunne versus Kushida. This comes after a battle royal. They were both in a battle royal to determine the competitors in the Gauntlet Eliminator match. And they were like the last two eliminated, which prevented them from being in the Gauntlet Eliminator match. And they both wanted to prove to each other who the best technical wrestler was. So that's why this match was happening. This was when Pete Dunne had turned heel again. He was with, if you remember, Oney Lorcan, Danny Burch, and Pat McAfee. But obviously when Pat McAfee was off TV, it was just Pete Dunne, Oney Lorcan, and Danny Burch. And this was really good stuff. Great match here to kick off the show. This was probably like the best Kushida ever looked in NXT and the best that Pete Dunne had looked under his heel running the second time in NXT. They both try to go for the submissions right away. Pete Dunne his wishbone submission and Kushida his surfboard. Or not his surfboard, but the hoverboard lock. And yeah, they both failed. And throughout the beginning portions of this matchup, they're just chain wrestling each other. Nobody really gets the advantage on each other. Eventually, Pete Dunne hits an X-Plex to Kushida right onto the apron. And Pete Dunne dominates the arm of Kushida for a while. Eventually, Kushida mounts a comeback. He hits a backflip enziguri onto him. He hits a really good clothesline onto him. Really good kick to the head. Kushida does a lot of moves where he targets the arm of Pete Dunne. He ends up doing a run and kick right across his arm. That was really cool. And Pete Dunne doesn't really let him get much more control. He hits a double underhook powerbomb onto Kushida. Into armbar, but Kushida fights out of it. And Kushida turns it into a cross arm breaker. Kushida at one point hits a suplex into a cross arm breaker, but Pete Dunne gets out of that. They fight to the outside. Kushida ends up running from the stage and kicks Pete Dunne again right into the arm and clotheslines him over the ropes. And then he hits a drop kick into the ring, but Pete Dunne kicks out of that. Pete Dunne tries 3 times to break the to do the thing where he breaks the fingers of Kushida, and eventually he succeeds. He ends up stomping into his arm while it's on the apron when it's like standing like this, which is cool. And then Kushida locks in the hoverboard lock. Pete Dunne gets to the ropes, and eventually Pete Dunne hits an enziguri followed by the bitter end, and he covers and gets the victory onto Kushida. This was a great opening match here. It was awesome. And I give it 4 stars. I like that no one really got the advantage on each other. It was a very back and forth match. and it was just great stuff. What did you think of this?
I thought the match was fantastic. I kind of wish that Pete Dunne would go back to using the fucking Xplex.
Yeah.
And I think the move looks fucking awesome.
Yeah,
But the
great.
whole match itself too was fantastic.
And yeah, going through career retrospectives, Pete Dunne basically would finish up his stint in NXT. He would stay a heel, and then when they rebranded the 2.0 era, he turned back into a babyface. He joined the main roster, and he had his name changed, but we don't say that name because that's banned from the show. But he joined up with Sheamus and Ridge Holland as part of the Brawling Brutes.
As Butch.
And originally it was a disaster. If you remember, they started dressing him up like Sheamus, and he was meant to be like the friend who just couldn't control himself and all that stuff. And originally it was a disaster. Like Vince McMahon just didn't understand what he had in Pete Dunne. And then all of a sudden when Triple H took over, everything changed. He went back to the Pete Dunne attire, and he still has that name, but he's gonna get he's gonna get his name back soon. And
He does have it's called Butch.
but he's gonna get he might get the Pete Dunne name back soon though. So but he's kept the gimmick though, and they kept the Brawling Boots, and they're like insanely over now, which is awesome. As for Kushida, unfortunately, this was what sucked the most about Kushida. Right when NXT started using Kushida correctly, because it took a while for it to happen. NXT rebranded into the 2.0 era, and they made Kushida like a comedy figure, teamed him up with Ike Manjiro, and they never really won any matches together. They didn't really do anything all that significant. Kushida would go on actually to, before that even happened, to win the Cruiserweight Championship, and he lost the belt to Roderick Strong, which we'll talk about that later. And then he would, team up with Ike Manjiro. Then he left WWE. He went back to New Japan. He was teased like he was going to challenge Tomo Ishii for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, but it didn't happen for some reason. They instead decided to do a four-way match at Wrestle Kingdom, and they didn't have Kushida in it because they were stupid there. They should have just had Kushida win the belt, but they never did. But he's done other things. He's done stuff in Impact Wrestling where he's reformed his tag teams with Alex Shelley, known as the Time Splitters, and that's what he's kind of doing right now. He's doing like a tour with them, so that's cool for Kushida. Next match was a 6-man gauntlet eliminator match where the winner was going to receive an NXT North American Championship match on night 2 of this show. The participants were Swerve Strickland. Isaiah Swerve Scott. Let me get that right. Cameron Grimes, LA Knight, Dexter Lumis, Bronson Reed, and Leon Ruff. Basically, they had a battle royal. They were the last 6 guys in the battle royal. And the way they determined seeding of who was going to come out next and everything is whoever got eliminated from the battle royal. And because LA Knight last survived the battle royal, he got to come out last. So I was very happy for LA Knight there. This basically this concept is basically the Elimination Chamber match, except it's like a Royal Rumble style instead of a cage. That's basically what the match stipulation here is. I like the stipulation. I don't know why they haven't done this stipulation in a while. I think it's a cool stipulation. Isaiah Swerve Scott and Leon Ruff started the match. And this is when Isaiah Swerve Scott had just transitioned into a heel. And he was doing really well at this time. He had just turned heel because he got upset that he couldn't win the Cruiserweight Championship. And he started wrestling more underhandedly and everything like that. He had turned heel on Jake Atlas. And I think they were feuded originally, but they switched the feud to Leon Ruff because admittedly, let's be honest, Leon Ruff's a better talent than Jake Atlas is. And you know that's true, Chris.
It is.
I never got into Jake Atlas. I don't know why. He just never interested me. So before the match starts, Leon Ruff gets thrown to the outside, out to the stage. So apparently he had been attacked by Isaiah Swerve Scott backstage, and they start fighting. They brawl around ringside. Leon Ruff dives off the stage and takes out Isaiah Swerve Scott. He ends up doing the same thing off the announcer's table. And they do this cool thing where they have like these plexiglasses inside because of COVID and everything like that. And Leon Ruff catches himself onto that and hits like an ace crusher off of that onto Isaiah Swerve Scott. It was cool. So cool. They get back into the ring. The match officially starts. They both go nuts with each other. And then the first entrant in the match is it's a Cameron Grimes. I believe that Cameron Grimes comes out first. Yeah, Cameron Grimes comes out first. No, actually, no, it's Bronson Reed. He comes out first. And Bronson Reed just murders both of these guys. He just destroys them for a while. At one point, he picks both of them up and just throws them into the plexiglasses, which just looked nuts. And then eventually, Cameron Grimes comes in. And if you remember, Chris, this is when Cameron Grimes had just started the gimmick when he became a millionaire and all that type of stuff. And he was big money, Cameron Grimes. And he just had that theme song, if you remember, that he has. Obviously not the same version, but that he has now, where let me tell you a story about a guy named Grimes. He said it hurt, and he had to make up for the time. That was so awesome. You remember that? I remember, isn't there a segment where like he's listening to that song backstage and he's just dancing around with money and all that type of stuff? I'm pretty sure that happened.
He did.
So Cameron Grimes bribes Isaiah Swerve Scott into working together with him. He gives them some money, and they start working together to take out Leon Ruff and Bronson Reed. Cameron Grimes just hits a middle kick right to the chest of Bronson Reed. And then it's time for the next entrance, and it's Dexter Lumis. And Cameron Grimes was scared because he had some PTSD of when he had that House of no, I don't know what it was called, but the horror match with LA Knight. I almost said the House of Horrors match, but that's not the same thing. Where like he had the match of Halloween Havoc when he was attacked by zombies and everything like that. So he was so Dexter Lumis starts taking everybody out. During Dexter Lumis' entrance, you didn't really see it on camera or anything like that, but Swerve Strickland, Isaiah Swerve Scott eliminates Leon Ruff, but you didn't really see how he got eliminated, so you kind of missed that. So that was a shame. And Dexter Lumis starts taking everybody out. He destroys everybody. Eventually, him and Bronson Reed go at it, and Bronson Reed just completely wipes out Dexter Lumis, just destroys him. And eventually, it's time for LA Knight to come out, and everybody's down at this point. And LA Knight cuts this great promo talking about how everybody's being idiots, destroying themselves while he's fresh as a daisy. He talks about how he's going to win the North American title and be like the fastest champion to ever win a belt in NXT. It was really good stuff. And obviously it says all his catchphrases that he normally says, and we've already said them on this show, so we don't need to say them again. And then everybody just sees LA Knight and they just start beating him up. Bronson Reed beats the crap out of LA Knight for a while, really injuring his ribs. LA Knight doesn't even get to get his wind jacket off for like the first 2 minutes he's in the match. Then eventually, LA Knight finally gets a move in. He starts taking everybody out. He hits a really cool superplex onto Cameron Grimes. And then eventually, Dexter Lumis locks the silencer in onto Cameron Grimes. And LA Knight rolls up Dexter Lumis while he's got the submission onto Grimes. And Dexter Lumis gets eliminated, which Dexter Lumis was not happy about.
As he shouldn't be.
Yeah. And then everybody everyone else that's left in the match starts eyeing LA Knight, and they all beat him up. Cameron Grimes hits the Spanish fly onto him. Swerve Strickland hits a house call onto him, and Bronson Reed hits a senton onto him, and Bronson Reed eliminates not Dexter Lumis, LA Knight, and LA Knight's mad about this because he thought he was cheated out of it since everyone worked together. And on the floor, Dexter Lumis locks the silencer in and just completely makes LA Knight pass out. So
fucking rude.
Everybody was rude to Dexter Lumis and LA Knight in this match. That was really rude. And then Cameron Grimes and Swerve Strickland / Isaiah Swerve Scott work together to try to take out Bronson Reed, but eventually they turn on each other. Cameron Grimes tries to win with a roll up, but then eventually Isaiah Swerve Scott reverses it into one himself, holds the tights, and gets the win. Well, not the win, but the elimination. And Cameron Grimes is really mad about it. There's that one point in the match, by the way, where like all the money just falls out of Cameron Grimes' trunks. And Wade Bale is being fun on commentary. So like, I may have to get out commentary. I may have to get some of that money right there. So that was really funny by Wade Barrett. Very funny guy right there. So then it's down to Bronson Reed and Isaiah Swerve Scott. They both go at it with each other. Bronson Reed hits actually a suicide dive onto the outside onto Isaiah Swerve Scott. That was awesome. Isaiah Swerve Scott hits 3 house calls in a row, but Bronson Reed still kicks out. Then Bronson Reed hits a power bomb and the tsunami onto Isaiah Swerve Scott and eliminates him, and he wins the Gauntlet Eliminator. And this is one thing I miss on commentary now. I miss Wade Barrett. This is why I wish Bronson Reed was on SmackDown, because I used to love it when Wade Barrett would call the tsunami, because he'd like scream, and he was like really good at calling the tsunami. He did a really good job. But this match was great. I give it 4 stars. I thought everybody served their purpose in the match. I thought they all did really well, and everybody got over in the match. Poor LA Knight, though, getting a double team, getting like triple team like that. I felt really bad for him. What did you think of this?
He deserves it. He's an asshole. Yeah.
What do you think of this match, though?
Really good. This is a really good match. Like you can hear me say a lot on this show.
Yeah, you are.
Good matches. Like it's just really good matches. Something I can say about NXT nowadays. But yeah, everyone in this match got put over like crazy. It's not that long before all of them, for the most part, get called up to the main roster.
Yeah.
Some of them no longer with the company anymore, but yeah, like this is Bronson Reed looked like a fucking monster out there.
He did.
He looked great. But yeah, that was a great match.
You're gonna say yeah, say it right, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyhow, let's go through some career retrospectives. We won't do Bronson Reed since he shows up on night 2. We'll do him when we talk about night 2.
Yeah.
Isaiah Swerve Scott. Yeah, this is really, really weird career he's had recently. He would go on to form the faction known as Hit Row with Adrian Lee Adonis, B-Fab, and Top Dollar. And he would win the North American title himself. Then he got drafted to SmackDown. Do you remember they did that bullshit last year, by the way? No, not that, but like in 2021, where they did the draft, but like the draft didn't like count until like after like Crown Jewel, so like he didn't even show up on SmackDown for like a month. But they were. That was just so weird how they did that. They were like, "Oh yeah, these guys are on these brands, but the draft itself doesn't go into effect until after Crown Jewel." Just can you imagine that happening in like football or something? They just do like a draft and like they do a draft in the middle of the season or whatever, and then like
chaos.
And then like Tom Brady like goes when he was still playing and stuff, like goes to like a different football team, but they still have him like play on the Patriots because the draft doesn't go into effect by then. It'd be so weird. Like that's honestly, I think Vince would have done that with the XFL because he was so old and all that type of stuff if it lasted that long. But anyhow, so yeah, Swerve Strickland eventually would go on to win the North American title. He would drop it to Carmelo Hayes later in the year, and then Hit Row's main roster one's like the weirdest call up ever. So they showed up for like 2 episodes, and then they got released like 2 weeks before Survivor Series or whatever. Like
yeah, it was right before Survivor Series.
And then Swerve Strickland signed with and how did that work, by the way? Did he have to do the main roster no compete clause or the NXT? Because it's so weird because he was on the main roster for only like 2 weeks. So it's like, how did that work?
Yeah, I have no idea.
But anyhow, he got
30 day.
Huh?
I think he got the 30-day.
Yeah, because it wouldn't even made sense. But yeah, he showed up. He got drafted. So he was released. He signed with AEW early last year. He didn't do all that much in like the beginning. And then he teamed up with Keith Lee, known as Swerve in Our Glory. They won the tag titles I think it was it Fyter Fest or Fight for the Fallen. I forget which one, but they won the tag titles on one of those shows.
It was one of them.
And then they lost the belts at Grand Slam to the Acclaimed. They teased a split. They split up. When did they split up? Like late last year, like right at the end of the year last year, pretty much. And now Swerve Strickland, which is what he's known as now, has a new faction. It's not like Hit Row, but he's with Parker Boudreaux and some other guy. What's the other guy's name?
Well, not anymore. They broke it up already.
What? When did that happen? We just talked about this like 2 weeks ago.
They weren't doing anything. So
okay, then.
I guess I don't know. They didn't really explain it, but they're not like Parker Boudreaux's doing his own thing. That other guy's doing his own thing. Not even wrestling. I don't know what the fuck he's doing.
Okay.
And then Swerve's not doing anything. So
didn't I tell you Swerve Strickland's had like a weird couple years in the freaking business? Like
he has.
Cameron Grimes would stay with this gimmick.
I know what happened. I overheard. I know what happened to. Okay, so I have seen the abysmal debut of Parker Boudreaux on AEW television. The reason they're not doing anything is because Parker Boudreaux, and I assume they thought the same about Trench, who hadn't debuted on TV yet, were the absolute pits in the fucking ring. Dude hit one of the sissiest big boots I've ever seen a big man hit in my life, and that's all you need to know about the Mogul affiliates. They have now since changed direction on that whole thing of Swerve. They are now having him come out with actual rappers. This week it was Tech 9, which is actually a pretty big deal. And apparently there's going to be a new teammate of his that's going to be joining him that is more seasoned ready. That I don't know who it is, but it ain't going to be Parker and Trench anymore.
Well, even with that said, I still stand by my stance. Swerve Strickland's had a weird couple years of it in the freaking business, though. Like he's just had like a weird year.
Yeah. I will say at least he's won some titles.
He has. Cameron Grimes would stay with this gimmick. If you remember, he turned face shortly afterwards with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and feuded with LA Knight actually, and he would stay a babyface. He won the North American title, then stupidly lost it like a month later for no reason, and then he feuded with Joe Gacy in an awful feud, and then he hasn't shown up much on NXT or anything like that. He's been working some SmackDown dark matches, but it looks like he's going to get called up after WrestleMania this year. So that's cool.
We hope so.
Yeah. And then LA Knight will continue his heel gimmick, have that feud with Cameron Grimes that I just mentioned. So technically he's a former $1 Million champion, right? That's canon. That's yeah. Say that right.
Yeah.
There you go. But then eventually when NXT rebranded, I think he turned babyface and feuded with Grayson Waller and had that awesome last man standing match with him. And then he went to the main roster, and originally he was just going to be a manager named Max Dupree and just manage Maximum Male Models. But pretty much the second Triple H took over, that ended. He went back to the LA Knight gimmick, and he hasn't done a lot. He's lost more than he's won. But there's rumors that he's geared up for like a big push after WrestleMania this year, which I'm really happy for him because he's awesome. Do you agree with that, Chris?
I agree with it 100%.
Yeah. And then Dexter Lumis, he would in kayfabe marry Indy Hartwell and join the Wave later in the year. And then when Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae left the company, basically it was being booked to shit. If you remember, they were part of that like terrible feud. Do you remember? It was like them and like I don't even remember what the person's name. It was like Indy Hartwell's tag partner and like Duke Hudson. Like they tried to do that feud, but then Dexter Lumis and Duke Hudson's like partner or whatever got released, and then Dexter Lumis did like one show in the NWA, and then he never signed a contract or anything like that. And then when Triple H took over, he signed right up and was part of that really good storyline in my opinion with the Miz, and now he's with Johnny Gargano pretty much. And as for Leon Ruff, he got released really randomly. I don't remember exactly when he got released. I think he got released in like June. And he's basically just been working the indies. He's shown up on a couple of AEW shows. I think he showed up on Dark like a few times. And he's shown up on GCW like once. So there you go. That's the career retrospective. Huh?
Good for him.
Yeah. Now he wrestles as Leon Ruffin. So next it shows a COVID-19 vaccine ad done by the NXT superstars. This is basically to try to convince people to get the vaccine, because a lot of people were having second thoughts about it at that time because they weren't sure about it and all that type of stuff. I won't say anything more about it because that's very political and you can't really say things about the vaccines or anything like that because it's very political. So there you go. Then we had the NXT United Kingdom Championship match. It was Walter. I can say Walter because he was Walter back then. Defending the belt against...
You're lucky.
Yeah. They let me get away with it. I don't know. If you let me get away with it the past few times, though, actually. So...
don't worry.
But yeah, it was Walter defending it against Tommaso Ciampa. This was a really good storyline at the time. At the time, Tommaso Ciampa just started teaming with Timothy Thatcher, and they themselves were in a feud with Marcel Bartel and Fabian Eichner, and they were questioning Timothy Thatcher's loyalties to Tommaso Ciampa because if you remember, Timothy Thatcher was in Rentkampf before Imperium themselves, all of them, joined up with WWE. So eventually Tommaso Ciampa would go on to, and Timothy Thatcher would go on to win that feud, but the feud exactly wasn't over yet. Alexander Wolf showed back up on NXT TV, and he said that he had a plan, and this is when Walter came in, and this was Walter's first time he was seen in USA, I think, since Worlds Collide when the Imperium faced the Undisputed Era. Walter talked about how Tommaso Ciampa went soft. He talked about how Tommaso Ciampa had all these other focuses outside of wrestling. He wasn't the same Tommaso Ciampa from 2018. This was the Tommaso Ciampa that had gone really soft and was just a family guy now. Not the show, just a family guy.
He's just a family guy.
And they did this really good thing that made it really personal when there's this necklace that Tommaso Ciampa would wear, and from that, like his daughter gave him when he went in for his surgery, and Walter ripped off that necklace and did like a really aggressive chop. Like I think it was like the Go Home episode right before this show. It was just really awesome stuff. And Walter was like dominant as a champion at this time. He was like I think he had like I forget the number exactly at this time, but I think he held the NXT UK title like 723 or like 44 days. It was in between there, and he was like the longest reigning moderate champion at this time. Like no one had a title reign that long since the 80s. Obviously that's been broken now recently, but you know, Walter did it first. And it was just a really awesome feud, and it was awesome stuff. I think it's probably the best like actual match of the whole show. But yeah, going through the match, Tommaso Ciampa and Walter just start stiffing each other in the beginning of the match, just hitting stiff shots on each other. Tommaso Ciampa hit some really aggressive right hands onto Walter, and he takes him inside and he beats the crap out of him, bounces him head first onto the announcer's table. And they fight back into the ring, and Walter hits a chop, and it immediately Tommaso Ciampa goes down onto the floor, and Walter just destroys Ciampa for a while. He hits a really aggressive Irish whip onto him, hits a really good suplex onto him. He just destroys Tommaso Ciampa. He hits a really good shot right to the back of his neck. He hits a really good drop kick onto him. Eventually, Ciampa starts mounting comebacks. He hits a airway crash on Walter, and Walter kicks out of it. Tommaso Ciampa works over the injured arm of Walter. Earlier in the match, Walter went for like a chop, and he inadvertently hit the announcer's table, and it like broke the top of the announcer's table. Like it was like split almost in half. It was really cool stuff. And Tommaso Ciampa worked over the arm of Walter. It was kind of hard for Walter to really do much. But Walter hit a big boot on Ciampa. He had 2 big boots in a row, but Ciampa kicked out. Ciampa made a comeback. He had a running knee onto Walter, and he kicked out of that. Ciampa threw him into the steps. He hit a Project Ciampa onto Walter, but Walter kicked out of it. And Walter hit a. There was a spit where Ciampa did like several clotheslines in a row. He did like 20 of them in a row, and Ciampa gets hit with a chop by Walter. And he immediately goes down and gets right back to his feet and tells him that he's not dealing with any of this crap, and just layways into Walter again and hits a running knee onto him. But Walter kicks out of the running knee. And then Walter goes for the powerbomb off of the turnbuckle, but Ciampa counters it into an air raid crash off the turnbuckle, and Walter kicks out of that. Walter locks Ciampa into a sleeper hold, and Ciampa bites the injured hand of Walter to get out of it. And Walter hits 2 power bombs in a row, and Ciampa just kicks out he kicks out like 2.9999999 9.
99999.
Yes, and eventually Walter hits another big boot and a chop and just knocks the air right out of Ciampa, and that was the finish of the match. I love the finish a lot, where you just saw the life go out of Ciampa, and he realized he wasn't going to be able to fight back anymore. And Walter retains the NXT United Kingdom Championship. This was a fantastic match. Walter's matches in WWE always feel special. His matches are like nothing you've ever seen before, because if you remember, this was not long after him and Ilya Dragunov had that classic match in NXT UK, like right when he came back and everything like that too.
Yep.
I give it 5 stars. This match was freaking phenomenal. What did you think of this?
This match was terrific. Looking back on it now, it seems so random that they had a match, because you kind of forget that actually happened. That they had. Like looking back on that now, it's like, whoa, okay, so Walter faced Tommaso Ciampa for the UK Championship. Like that seems very weird. But yeah, the match is every bit of great as you said it was, Owen. Like that match was fantastic. It's just it's tough to like put into words, but the match was great.
It would have been cool if they had Ciampa win this match, because it would give NXT UK some recognition. But then again, like you couldn't really have Ciampa win either, because there was still travel and stuff. Like you wouldn't be able to get. It'd be tough to get Ciampa to get back over on NXT, and NXT needed Ciampa at this time, since I mean they weren't at war with AEW, but they were on TV, and Ciampa was like one of their guys. They couldn't really not go. They couldn't go without Ciampa on NXT and stuff like that. If we were in a different time, I do kind of wish too they would have found a way to do Walter versus like Finn Balor. Just because I think we're gonna get that match eventually, but I feel like because we were robbed of that match because of the pandemic, so it would have been cool if we could have found a way to do that match. Especially since they were both there and stuff like that too. But you know it didn't really call for it at the time. But yeah, fantastic. Going through career retrospectives. We have to do it for 3 things technically. Afterwards, also too, Walter stands out there with Imperium, Alexander Wolf, Fabian Eichner, and Marcel Botel. So Alexander Wolf, believe it or not, he got released not long. He got released not long after this, so he was released 2 weeks later, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was in that much longer. He was gone not much longer.
And if you remember, they wrote him off by like having like Walter like beat him up and all that type of stuff. So he's gone back to like the British indie scene pretty much. As for Walter would hold on to this title until SummerSlam weekend, where he lost it at the NXT TakeOver, the last one before NXT rebranded where he lost it to Ilya Dragunov. And then he pretty much had one more match in NXT UK, and then he moved over to America. And he had that really classic match with Roderick Strong, the last match as Walter. And then he changed his name. Chris said it earlier, so we don't need to say it again. And he did really well in NXT. Then he moved over to the main roster. He moved over just originally with Marcel Bartel, and they changed his name. We don't need to say what that name is because that name's banned from this show.
Ludwig Kaiser.
And then
Giovanni Vinci. Let's go. And Gunther.
and then do you remember what the last name of Walter's new name was? Because it was
Not
he had a
not what it was.
You remember he had a last name at one point though.
He has no last name that never existed.
But do you remember the I don't know. Yeah. But then anyhow, originally, and then Walter would go on to win the Intercontinental Championship from Ricochet, and he's hung on to that title ever since. He is the longest reigning. He's the longest reigning modern Intercontinental Champion. I think he's actually going to be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion this year. And then Fabian Eichner. Do you want to talk about what happened to Fabian Eichner originally when he didn't get caught up with Imperium? What was going to happen to him?
So Fabian Eichner became Giovanni Vinci, and he was a male model type of gimmick. Very not male model, but vain, very vain person who would come to the ring and take pictures. People, they'd be like a fucking picture being taken. It'd be like a different pose that he'd strike. And it was just really fucking weird. Thank God he doesn't do that anymore.
Pretty much right when Triple H took over, Triple H is like, yeah, get over here. You need to be with him. You need to be with the Imperium. That's pretty much what happened. Like
they just reunited Imperium.
Yeah.
Like instantly he reunited Imperium.
He's just like, I think Triple H looked at the roster of NXT, and he was like, wait a minute. I wonder if he like visited NXT like one week and he saw like Fabian Eichner was backstage. He's like, wait a minute, why are you here? Shouldn't you be with Imperium or something? Like I kind of hope that's what happened. Like Triple H was like backstage at NXT. He's like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? You should be with Imperium. Like, what are you doing? Like,
we need to be with Imperium.
Yeah, like I bet Triple H was like, wait a minute. It'd be funny too if Triple H is just like. He just like said, "Okay, get on the plane with me. We're going. We're gonna reunite you guys now. Like, what's going on here?" He's just like, "Yeah." It'd be cool if Triple H like completely kicked him out of the arena too. Like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. Like,
you need to get out.
Yeah, and Shawn Michaels, because he's the one that tried to book that game. Was like, wait, but I have a storyline for him, and he tried to like show Triple H what he had planned for him. So he's like, no, he's coming with me. Like they were like fighting for like Fabian Eichner. That'd be hilarious. Like
yanking him one way, yanking him the other.
That would be
pulling
awesome.
his arms off.
Well, he did disappear for like a month. Maybe he had to get new arms because they ripped his arms off. So
it's like, get there, you don't need fucking arms anymore.
But yeah, and then we have to do another career retrospective. The NXT UK brand, unfortunately, it ended up shutting down. It was last summer, right? Like right before Clash at the Castle, it shut down. Which is a shame because the pandemic killed that brand because
it did 100%.
Yeah, because they completely shut the brand down. They released most of the wrestlers that were there. The only ones that are left that were like in the brand originally are Imperium, Rich Holland, because you forget he was there at one point. Pete Dunne. Who else is left? Oliver Carter's still there. Tyler Bate, Ilya Dragunov, Jordan Devlin. I was gonna say Trent Seven, but I forgot they got rid of him. I think there's somebody else that's left, but I'm like forgetting who it is. Oh, A-Kid. I forgot A-Kid's there because he's not A-Kid technically. Well, technically he isn't there anymore because him and Axiom are different people. If you think about it,
they are because one of them wears a mask and one of them doesn't.
Yeah, But they're supposed to start NXT Europe. They haven't done any further conversations about it yet. We don't know why, but I assume they will start it soon. I think because they're setting up for the sale of the company. They don't want to start like a new brand if they're gonna sell the company. So it's kind of like, you know. Next, do you remember this? The Frankie Monet vignettes, where it shows like her dog like running around the place and just causing a bunch of trouble. Do you remember these at all or no?
No, I don't.
Do you remember who Frankie Monet was?
Yes.
I actually forgot that she was in the company as Frankie Monet. It's Taya Valkyrie. And how long did she last in the company? She didn't last. She was released later in the year, wasn't she?
Yeah, she didn't last a year.
I think she was released. Was she released right before it rebranded to 2.0?
No, after.
Okay. Did she ever show up at the 2.0 era?
Yeah, she did for a little bit.
And then she got released. And then she's worked Impact, AAA, and MLW. She was the Knockouts Tag Champions, I think, twice. Once with Rosemary and once with Jessica Havoc. And then I don't know if she still is, but she was I forget what they call the belt there, but she's like the women's champion in AAA. And she just recently debuted in AEW and might potentially dethrone Jade of the TBS Women's Championship, but that may not happen because we thought Athena was going to do it and it didn't happen. So then Bronson Reed gets interviewed. He talks about how he's looking forward to his North American Championship match with Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano interrupts it, and he talks about how he doesn't stand a chance going up against Johnny Takeover, and says that he's going to lose to him because his injuries are going to catch up to him. So good interview right there. What do you think of this interview right here?
It was good.
Johnny Gargano wasn't being very nice, though. I don't know.
No, he wasn't. He's mean.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. Then we had the next match. It was for the this made me sad watching this match back. It was for the vacant NXT Tag Team Championships. It was MSK versus Grizzled Young Veterans versus Legado del Fantasma. The reason this match was going on is because MSK had just debuted like a couple months ago. They just won the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics, beating the Grizzled Young Veterans, and they were originally set to challenge Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch for the NXT Tag Titles, but they did a thing where Grizzled Young Veterans took them out. And they were originally doing this to delay the match, so what happened is later in the night, Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch defended them against Finn Balor and Karrion Kross, but Danny Burch got hurt during that match. I think he took like one of the Saito suplexes and was injured. I think he injured his shoulder in the match. So Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch had to vacate the tag titles, and pretty much what they did was they decided that MSK and the Grizzled Young Veterans were going to face off. I don't remember exactly how the Legado del Fantasma factored into this. I'm pretty sure they just beat like Grizzled Young Veterans like in a match, so like they saw that and like, okay, well, obviously you have to be in this match because you have been on a winning streak as of late, so that's why they're in this match. So yeah, that was the build up to this match. Fantastic match right here. All three teams start the match. MSK get on a roll. They start taking everybody out. Eventually, Grizzled Young Veterans get the heat on them for a while. They just dominate Wesley for a while. Eventually, Nash Carter gets the hot tag, and he starts hitting a lot of really cool dives on everybody. And then Legado del Fantasma then gets the heat. They hit really cool dives on to everybody, and then Nash Carter gets the hot tag. They do this really cool thing where Wesley goes for a moonsault, and I think it's the opposite. I think Nash Carter does the moonsault, and Wesley like pushes Nash Carter like into position for the moonsault, which is cool. And then everybody starts hitting dives on each other. Eventually, Wesley. Zach Gibson traps his arm into the turnbuckle, and James Drake drop kicks it, and it leads to Zach Gibson putting him into the Shanley Gates, and he's in there for a while, and eventually it gets broken up by Legado. Legato hits the Russian leg sweep Insaguri combination, and they don't get the belts there. Eventually, MSK and Grizzly Dunn Veterans wipe out Legato Del Fantasma, just completely take them out. And then it's down to them two. They blow around for a while. And eventually MSK hit the Flapjack Blockbuster combination onto, I think it was James Drake for the win. And they become the new NXT Tag Team Champions. This is a great match here. You really just have to go watch it for yourself. I really can't do service to the match. It's a great match here. I give it 4 stars. It's a great tag match. So what do you think of this?
I thought this was fantastic. I remember at the time being super fucking happy for MSK. Great tag team. Coming over from Impact, making a real impact, to say the least.
They were
fucking moon all the way through their run in NXT. But yeah, this match is fantastic.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure that their families, MSK's like families, were in the crowd. I'm pretty sure it was like one of their dad's birthdays or something. Or like one of their.
It was Nash Carter's dad's birthday, and his dad had passed away years prior.
So like this was kind of like special for Nash Carter. Going through some career retrospectives here. I'm gonna let you do MSK because you haven't really been able to rant passionately about what's happened with MSK since it's happened. So do you want to kind of do a career retrospective of MSK because it's kind of sad?
So MSK would go on to lose the tag titles. Not long after this. They had them for a while, but they lost them. I'm gonna see when they lost them, but they had them for a while.
Yeah, because they had them in the. I remember they like started. They had them in the 2.0 era, like right when it started, pretty much. So.
Yeah, because Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch had to vacate the titles because one of them got hurt.
Yeah,
Danny Burch got hurt.
Yes.
So MSK had the titles from April 7th of 2021 to April 26th of 2021, and the MSK won them back. Not long after that, at the second Stand and Deliver.
Yeah.
But they only held them for, I think, 6 days before Nash Carter ended up getting released. He got released because his wife, now ex-wife now, at the time, Kimberly, a very known independent wrestler, who was in WWE for quite a while, was Abby Leith. They were in Impact together. They had been dating for a long time and got married. Nash Carter, and he years prior did a funny. I mean, looking back at it, it's a joke, but he did the Hitler salute with the Hitler mustache, and as a joke, it was meant to be funny. This is like 6 years prior to this. And she ended up bringing it up and saying that he was abusive and all this shit. Which none of it was true. Because, conveniently enough, in real life, him and Wesley are the best of friends. They're like brothers. They have known each other forever. They're insanely close. They love each other like brothers. And Wesley and his wife came to the defense of Nash Carter and provided all the fucking evidence that they needed to prove that he is not a domestic abuser. And it was true. He wasn't. And he ended up losing his job because of both of the things that had happened. Although MJF has come out and said that, Zachary Wentz, Nash Carter, is not an anti-Semite. He came out and defended him. Obviously, MJF is Jewish, and he said that he came out and defended Zach Wentz and said that he's a really nice guy and that he's not in any way, shape, or form an anti-Semite, and that he didn't do it intentionally. He knew that it was a joke, And, people would do that shit. Did he deserve to lose his job because of it? Probably not.
Probably not.
Had they suspended him and kept the thing investigated the whole thing instead of just immediately releasing him. Because it went from they win the titles at Stand and Deliver, and then 4 days later he's released. It's like, what the hell? You could have just suspended him, got all the facts, and then you would have found out that it wasn't true because and Kimberly had, this is shitty. She faked that Nash Carter beat her up by, there's a side by side of their cat attacked her, like scratched her up and stuff, and she tried to blame that on Nash Carter. Just the dumbest shit. And internet detectives went through and found out because she had gone to the hospital or something in 2019 or whatever the fuck it was, for lacerations by the cat. And it was the same picture. So she was faking it the entire time. She put makeup on her face, and it was found out. And Wesley's wife was posting all on social media about it, about how how he wasn't even at the house at the time. He was actually living with Wesley and his wife, so they would know if something would have happened because they're very close. But nothing happened. Yeah. And they fucking released Nash Carter for no reason, essentially. Granted, the Hitler thing, it's a joke, but it's insensitive. I firmly agree. I firmly said it's insensitive. But does he deserve to be fired over it?
Yeah, not at all.
If they just suspended him, waited for everything to play out, that whole picture would have went away, and he would have been right back.
Yep.
But instead, they fucked him over. She fucked him over, essentially, for the sake that she was jealous, and they were in the process of getting divorced, and she fucked him over, and she fucked over the dream job that he had.
Yeah.
His goal for his entire life was to get to WWE. Zachary Green, his entire life, tried to get to WWE. And eventually, he gets to WWE after years of grinding on the independent scene as Zachary Wentz, and after getting to WWE and becoming Nash Carter and getting super over with the NXT crowd. They just she completely fucked him over.
I know, yeah, it's so bad.
And on a happier note and a lighter note, also, this in a way it kind of put Wesley in a very directionless way. But right now he is the current North American champion, and he's booked like a fucking star.
Yes.
And that's kind of the good that comes out of it, out of that very entirely shitty situation.
Yeah.
Is Wesley has absolutely put on classics recently. Absolutely. On pay-per-views, on beginning of NXTs. He has a huge match upcoming in I think it's a Fatal 5-Way match for the North American Championship. Huge match. It's going to probably be the best match of NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver.
Not TakeOver anymore.
NXT Stand and Deliver, yeah. But yeah, so out of that shitty situation, Wesley became an absolute fucking star.
Yeah. I assume, though, if you were to ask Wesley, like, he would, even though he became a star, he would rather have his friend there than him not. Oh, yeah,
he would definitely rather have his best friend with him, obviously, yeah. That is 100% true. But that's the one credit I give to Shawn Michaels is he definitely found something to do with him and pushed him and pushed him to the moon.
Yeah. It's like the one thing Shawn Michaels did right in his booking, pretty much.
It's worked out tremendously.
Yeah. Going through other career retrospectives, as for Grizzled Young Veterans, They would stay as this tag team for a while. Unfortunately, they're not the Grizzled Young Veterans anymore. They're now with Schism, and they have new red names now, and they just suck, and Schism sucks. So that's the end of that. You know I'm right, by the way.
You're 100% right. That gimmick sucks.
And Zach Gibson just looks weird now. Like I look at him, he just looks so weird now. Like
He just looks dead.
no.
He doesn't look like a human being anymore.
I don't know why. Did he like die and then like I don't know.
He died and is now reincarnated as Jagger Reed and James Drake as he's Rip Fowler. That's right. He has been reincarnated as Rip Fowler, and James Drake is now Jagger Reed.
I would say Zach Gibson's definitely like dead though. Like he definitely died or something. Because James Drake at least looks like he's still alive. That Gibson looked like he died. Like reincarnated.
He doesn't even have like he looks like soulless in his eyes.
I don't know what happened.
Because he looks dead inside.
He might be dead. He might be dead outside too. Like
you might just be a walking zombie at this point.
Yeah. And then as for Legado del Fantasma, they've done really well for themselves. They stayed in NXT for like a while. They did some questionable things with them, but then once they got called out to the main roster, they've been like on fire recently. They just recently turned babyface and are like massively over with the crowd. Huh?
Right, that's the right decision.
Yeah. At least they didn't die like Zach Gibson did, though. He's dead.
But Cruz del Toro is alive and going, and Raul Mendoza is dead.
No, he's not. Raul Mendoza's a cool dude. Okay.
He might be a cool dude, but he's not living anymore. It's Cruz del Toro.
No, it's not.
It's Cruz del Toro, baby. Let's go.
When did that name change happen? Because I remember all of a sudden, like I was watching NXT. He was like Raul Mendoza one week. You know, I remember too. It happens mid match. Like they just say he's like a new name, like in the middle of a match. It doesn't even like you don't even hear about it or anything.
Yeah, Cruz del Toro. That's right. The name that he uses. It was randomly too. It was like they trademarked Cruz del Toro, and then all of a sudden, randomly, he just announced it on. They were like Cruz del Toro and fucking Wild, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's Raul Mendoza. Wait a minute,
that's right. It is Raul Mendoza. That's right. Thank you.
Well, he was that at that time, and now he's Cruz del Toro.
You just said, wait a minute, he's Raul Mendoza. You admitted that you'd rather him be Raul Mendoza. That's all I needed.
He is Cruz del Toro.
But anyhow, continuing the main event of night one, let's talk about it. It's for the NXT Women's Championship. It's NXT Women's Champion Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez with Dakota Kai ringside. This is interesting here because Raquel Gonzalez was going to debut on NXT like right before, like I think the week they were going to debut on television. But she obviously wasn't ready to be like on TV on the USA Network back then. So they're like, okay, we have to delay this now because you're not ready to be on like TV every week. Because if you remember, NXT wasn't on TV every week when it was on the network. It was only on like every other week. Like it was on every week, but obviously like because of the tape delays, like you would only see certain wrestlers like every other week. So she wasn't ready to be on TV every week. So she debuted at NXT TakeOver, I think it was Portland, and joined up with Dakota Kai. And she was basically the Diesel to a Shawn Michaels, pretty much.
Yep. They actually have like a Shawn Michaels and a Diesel type a tag team name too.
Yeah,
I forget the name whatever it was called, but like it was similar to what Two Dudes with Attitude. It was very similar to that. And
she was basically just a heavy for Dakota Kai for a while. Meanwhile, Io Shirai won the NXT Women's Championship at NXT TakeOver Stand in Your... Sorry, no, not Stand in Your House. NXT TakeOver in your house. NXT TakeOver in your house that you stand in. That'd be an epic name for a pay-per-view. Just stand in your... That should have been a pay-per-view name during the pandemic. Stand in your house. That should have been a pay-per-view.
That's like... There'd be them yelling at you like, you stand in your house.
Why no? She won the NXT title at NXT. I almost said it again. NXT in your house, not stand in your house, in your house. I feel like I just yelled at myself to stand in my house. Like that's how bad it is. I bet you felt like I was yelling at you to stay in your house. You were like, "Wait, did you just tell me to stay in my house? Like, what's going on here?" Like,
You gotta stand in your house.
I feel like too because it's run by Triple H. I could just picture Triple H yelling at you to stand in your house, and like Shawn Michaels yelling at you to stand in your house. Like, But yeah, NXT TakeOver in your house. Io Shirai won the championship, and she went on a tear with this championship. She defended it against all challengers, and then eventually Raquel Gonzalez started getting over. I'd say getting over, but it's tough to say that during the pandemic because really you had to basically go what was going on online because at the time the crowd obviously was going to cheer you at the time because it was pandemic crowds, so they're going to cheer anybody. Well, they wouldn't cheer Roman Reigns at that time. He wasn't getting cheered during the pandemic.
Shockingly.
Yeah. I think Retribution got cheered during the pandemic though. So
I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
Because it was so quiet when they debuted.
Yeah. Then Raquel Gonzalez was making a name for herself. She got the pinfall at War Games when she pinned Io Shirai. And then she beat Rhea Ripley in the last woman standing match at NXT New Year's Evil. And eventually Io Shirai got to pick her next challenger, and she picked Raquel Gonzalez for the reasons that I talked about earlier, because she wanted to be like an Ida Rey Mysterio and defeat all of the imposing superstars. I feel like she didn't really watch Rey Mysterio's world title reign because he wasn't beating anybody when he was world heavyweight champion. He faced all opposing superstars. He wasn't beating anybody. So
no, he wasn't.
Then it led to a lot of brawls and stuff. There's that image where Raquel Gonzalez like smashed Io Shirai through the wall and stuff like that. It was just really good stuff. And this main event in night one, there was no commercial break like at all. Because at this time, if it was on USA Network, I think there was probably breaks, but they'd be picture in picture. But it was like a commercial-free match. It's really weird though. If you just watched this on Peacock, you would have gotten this commercial-free anyways. So, and I will say the weird things. There'd be weird things that happen when you watch it on Peacock. They would tell you, "Oh, we're gonna go to commercial break now," and then the commentators would be like shut off for like a couple seconds. And like, "Okay, yeah, but we're still live on Peacock." And, like you could tell Vic Joseph was like very new to like doing two platforms at once type of thing. And obviously Wade Barrett and Beth Phoenix were too. Going through the match, they both start out on fire with each other. They both hit rights and left hands and just completely beat the crap out of each other. Io Shirai gets the advantage in the beginning. She hits a suicide dive onto the outside. She goes for a moonsault, but Dakota Kai basically stops her pretty much, and this causes the referee to eject her. She ends up hitting the moonsault anyways, and then eventually Raquel Gonzalez grabs her and just throws her into the barricade. And this was, if you remember when you saw the Capitol Wrestling Center, there'd be some parts of the barricade that didn't have the hockey patterns or whatever it was. It'd just be like the barricade, if you remember. And Raquel Gonzalez dominates Io Shirai for a while. She hits a really good vertical standing suplex. Really good back suplex. Eventually, Io Shirai mounts a comeback. She hits a missile drop kick. She hits the Tiger Fang kick. And they fight up to the ringside. She hits a running double knees while they're on the stage. And then she the set there was like a Halloween like skeleton, and she goes off the skeleton and hits a crossbody onto Raquel Gonzalez. That was awesome. And then she hits the moonsault. Raquel Gonzalez kicks out of it. I think that's the first time anyone ever kicked out of Io Shirai's moonsault. And then she goes for a dive onto the outside. And Raquel Gonzalez hits the Chahana bomb onto the floor. Even though I've seen this match before, when I watched it yesterday, I was like, onto the floor. I couldn't believe it that happened. And then she goes into the ring. She hits it a second time to Io Shirai and gets the win, and she becomes the new NXT Women's Champion. It made sense. They were really pushing Raquel Gonzalez at this time
massively
as a dominant imposing figure. So it's cool stuff that this happened. The match is great. I give it 4 3/4 stars. It was a great match right here. It was a great call to have this main event night 1. I was kind of questioning it a little bit because I'm thinking, you're putting this match up against John Moxley and the Young Bucks versus the Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers. That's like a pretty big match for AEW to do. But if you remember, the NXT Women's Division was like really big at this time. Like the division was loaded
huge
at this time. And that's the one thing that NXT offered that AEW really couldn't offer at this time, because even though AEW had just done that lights out women's match between Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, other than that, we really hadn't seen like a classic like women's match on AEW at the time, and we still kind of haven't for the most part. But NXT was really providing that. Like, if you liked women's wrestling, NXT was the show for you.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, it was a great match here. What did you think of this?
I thought this match was great. Really fantastic main event. They usually would do that with the would they usually do that with the women?
Yeah.
They would main event shows like all the time. So it was nice to see it happen here again to close out a big pay-per-view. It was awesome. Match was great. WWE kind of, in a lot of ways, set the standard for like women main eventing shows. They did so many of them before even this.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was great. I really liked it.
Another history making thing here. I originally thought it was history making, but I forgot. Raquel Gonzalez became like the second like Performance Center like trainee, really, just in the Performance Center to win the title. I thought she was the first, but I forgot Charlotte Flair technically was the first. And I started thinking in my mind, like, was she the second? Because I was thinking Shayna Baszler, because I thought originally she just went right to the UFC, to WWE. But I forgot Shayna Baszler worked the Indies, like, for, I think, a few months right before she went to...
Yeah, she worked the Indies a little bit.
So, I don't think Raquel Gonzalez is the first one to go straight to WWE and is like a Performance Center success to win the NXT Women's Championship. So, before this match, I forgot to mention this, they showed... Soraya, whatever her name was, with Stephanie McMahon in the crowd, because she had just signed at this time. And it really makes me sad because I think you could tell Triple H, more specifically, had big plans for her, I think, when they signed her and stuff. But obviously, because they rebranded NXT, they never really... Because I honestly think, had anything gone according to plan, I think she was going to be the one to... If NXT stayed black and gold, she probably would have dethroned Raquel Gonzalez eventually for the title, probably.
She's so talented.
Yeah, so it's really a shame.
Insane.
Going through some career retrospectives, Io Shirai, this was basically kind of like her last stint for a while in NXT. She would obviously come back. She'd win the NXT tag titles, like I mentioned earlier, with Zoe Starks, and then she lost those belts at Halloween Havoc. Her and Kaylee Ray won what do they call the women's tag team classic? Is it just the women's, like, it's is it the Mae Young?
I forget the name. I don't even know. I forget the name of the tournament, but yeah.
Yeah, she won like the women's version of the Dusty Tag Team Classic, pretty much. And then they would challenge for the belt. And I think that was like Io Shirai's last match in NXT, was when she challenged for the belt last year in that 4-way match. Which is kind of a shame that was the last match at NXT. Like, I thought she could have gone out in a better way. But she was going to leave. She left the company. I assume had Triple H not taken over, she probably would have been part of the New Japan Women's Division that they have going on right now. She would probably honestly be facing Mercedes Moné probably this weekend for the title, probably, on April 8th. But that didn't happen. Not Frankie Moné, Mercedes Moné.
Mercedes Moan?
But then Io Shirai, when Triple H took over, she returned at SummerSlam this past year, and she formed Damage Control with, ironically enough, Dakota Kai and Bayley, and her and Dakota Kai had been 2-time WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, and she's set to be part of the 6-woman tag with Bayley teaming up against Trish Stratus, Becky Lynch, and Lita. So that's a pretty good. Io Shirai's definitely gone places since this show. So, as for Raquel Gonzalez, she was a pretty good women's champion. Unfortunately, she lost the belt to Mandy Rose at Halloween. Was it Halloween Havoc? She lost the belt, or did she lose?
Yeah, it was Halloween Havoc.
When Dakota Kai cost her the match, and then she did some stuff in NXT. She kind of just mainly challenged for the title. Her and Dakota Kai won the tag titles like one final time, and then they lost them like shortly afterwards.
Yeah, because I think was Dakota released at the time, or was it because they called up Raquel?
I think both, because Dakota left and then Raquel got called up. So, I think it was going to happen anyways because they called Raquel up anyways. So, but Dakota definitely left right after that show. And then they called up Raquel Gonzalez. She's now Raquel Rodriguez, and she hasn't done all that much since she's been on the main roster. She's
bounced around tag teams too. Also,
I think her and Aaliyah won the tag titles when they brought them back in that tournament. And stuff.
It was so bizarre thinking back to. I forgot that even happened.
Yeah, I know.
No, Aaliyah's gone. Where
Yeah,
the hell she is?
If I had to, I mean, I do kind of. I kind of hope they do something with Raquel Rodriguez fairly soon. So, as for Dakota Kai, we kind of talked about it. She would go on to turn on Raquel Gonzalez later in the year, and cost her the title and things like that. She had this weird gimmick where she had like a split personality gimmick, but they never really did anything with it. And then, do you remember her theme music changed too? It'd be like spooky, like the same song that she would have like later on and that type of stuff. They got like really spooky. And then she left WWE after she won the tag titles with Raquel, and then she came back and basically just take what I just said about Io Shirai and put it with Dakota Kai because it's the same thing. So, and that's night one. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to review night two now, or do you want to do a letter grade for night one, and then, or do you want to just grade both shows together?
Grade as one show.
Okay, so let's get to night two now. For the exclusives, they had What's Next, which was hosted by Mackenzie Mitchell and Alicia Taylor. They had Finn Balor come on. They played this or that with him about asking which thing he would do, like which thing he likes better and all that type of stuff. They had him. They asked him a question about, what similarities him and Karrion Kross have, and he's like, do you think that the only thing that you and Karrion Kross have in common together is that you both injured your shoulder after winning the title and had to vacate the title? And Finn's like, no, we have other things in common. We both have two eyes. We both wrestle. It was just hilarious. Finn Balor talked about his favorite cheat meal, and he walked off with some Papa John's pizza because at this time, obviously, NXT was very much heavily sponsored by Papa John's Pizza, if you remember. So, and then they had the weigh on. They talked about their title matches coming up. Austin Theory was he loved pizza at this time, and he ate like 4 slices of pizza like during this interview and stuff like that.
Good for him.
Yeah, and then
guy's hungry.
He left with all the pizza too when they leave for the interview, and then when they come back, Mackenzie Mitchell they don't have any pizza anymore. He comes back for like one other slice of Mackenzie Mitchell's pizza, and he takes like the dipping sauce and all that type of stuff. So
he's a growing boy.
And Johnny Gargano was making fun of him. It was like, you can't have pizza around him. You have pizza, it's like calling a horn of hornets or whatever. I don't even know, but doing this too, Mackenzie Mitchell was trying to get the details on Indy Hartwell because this was when they were setting up that storyline at that time where they're going to put Dexter Lumis and Indy Hartwell together. So they were still setting that up at this time. So Indy Hartwell gave her a phone number, and she said she was going to text Mackenzie Mitchell the details and all that type of stuff. And then Austin Theory was being nice, and he was going to give Alicia Taylor like a Way T-shirt. And Eventually, he changed his mind and just left with the T-shirt. And doing this, he had sauce all over his face from the pizza, and he used the T-shirt he bought for Alicia Taylor to wipe the sauce off. What an asshole he is!
What a fucking
Like, and then they did another funny thing where Alicia Taylor tried to pay Finn Balor like $500 to chop Mackenzie Mitchell. What a meanie! That's so mean. And Finn Balor just
cruel.
Finn Balor told the story. You probably heard her tell the story before, where in Japan he would just at the restaurants and stuff, he would just I assume it was probably him and the Bullet Club, if I had to guess. They would just chop random customers at the Japan restaurants. It was really hilarious.
Fucking bizarre. They did.
Yeah. And Finn Balor just said he's not into that anymore. So good for Finn Balor.
It's not his kink anymore.
Yeah. He probably also doesn't want to hit a woman and get arrested and stuff. But you know. If you want career retrospectives, Mackenzie Mitchell is still there. She's now married to Vic Joseph, and she's now 29 years old. So that's Mackenzie Mitchell's career retrospective. Yeah, I can believe she's only 20. She's only 29 years old.
No, she's old.
Yeah. Hey, you're older than her because you act older than her. So
she is old. She's older than me.
Yeah. And then as for Alicia Taylor, she's still the ring announcer for NXT. So we had the pre-show. We had the same people as the hosts and the same people as the commentators. Career retrospective on Vic Joseph. He's still the play-by-play guy. Like I said, he's just worse on commentary now because of partnership with Booker T. And then
come on. Come on. You don't want a shucky ducky quack quack.
I do not want to do that.
You don't want a fave 5, maybe even a fave 6. Sometime.
Fave 10.
Do
you remember too, by the way, just randomly, when Booker T, anytime somebody turned heel or did something he didn't like, he's like, oh, he's getting close to being off that fave, or if they were turning heel, it'd be like that. He's getting close to be off that fave 5, man. He's getting close. Like
those fave 5s, man, that's legendary.
Yeah.
Legendary.
How many times do you think his fave 5 has changed too? Like
too much.
What do you think has changed more, Jerry the King Lawler's Royal Rumble picks or Booker T's Fave 5?
Booker T's Fave 5.
I don't know. Jerry the King Lawler, I think, didn't he change his Royal Rumble picks I think every entrant in the Royal Rumble match one year?
That's my pick. That's my pick. That's my pick. That's my pick. Everyone knows his pick.
Do you remember what he picked this year for the Royal Rumble? He said he predicted it was going to be a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. And guess what? He still got that one. So,
technically Booker T.
No, he predicted the surprise entrant would win the Rumble, but he didn't get that.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was the Women's Rumble that he picked. So he thought he was being smart.
Unreal.
But anyhow, going through the show, Samoa Joe does some more interviews. He interviews Karrion Kross and Scarlett. He asked Karrion Kross, about what it's like to give up a championship due to injury. And he talked about how it was devastating for him, but it fueled him to come back and want to win a title. He asked if Finn Balor's right about him. And, if he really just fights on emotion versus just fighting. And Karrion Kross had a good answer for that. And then he asked what he wants to do in NXT when he wins the belt. And he says he doesn't want to just be in limbo. He wants to win championships and stuff. This is kind of cool in hindsight because if you remember, Samoa Joe and him have that match at the last takeover that year. So it's kind of cool that he did an interview with him and stuff. Then he interviews Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, not Karrion Kross. And this was kind of funny because they basically acknowledged their history. And Samoa Joe's like, champ, we haven't talked in a while. And Finn's like, yeah, what's going on? And Samoa Joe was being a smart ass here. He knew what he was doing. He asked, so you have a good record at NXT TakeOver. You're 14-1. He's like, and Finn's like, yeah, I wonder who that one is that beat me at NXT TakeOver. And he's like, I don't know who that was. And if you, the joke there is Samoa Joe was the one guy that beat him. So that was kind of some good jaw jacking back and forth with each other.
The jack and the jaws.
Yeah. But yeah, Finn Balor talked about how he feels like he's on the best run of his career. He says he's going to take Karrion Kross and he's going to take him to deep water and he's going to drown him. That's not.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's what he said. I think he meant it figuratively though. He didn't mean it like literally. So
holy fuck.
he said,
kill him.
Huh? Yeah, that's what he said. And then he said that he's going to retain the NXT championship. And he said he's going to continue to prove all the naysayers wrong. It was kind of weird because he was, if you remember, because Finn had turned babyface naturally, but he was still like in his heel persona, if you remember. So he talked about it. He was like, I'm sick of I'm sick of having to prove everybody wrong. I'm sick of this. I'm done with it. Like he was like so mad about it.
Why is he so mad about it? He's fucking.
I know. I wonder if he's mad. I wonder if he's mad because he's being teased with. I know what it is. He's being teased because he got given pizza earlier in the show, and he said that he can't. He got told he can't have it until after the match because it would ruin his cardio and stuff. So I think he was pissed he couldn't have that. I think he was pissed he couldn't have that pizza. But yeah, Finn Balor was very angry. He was very angry during this interview. So maybe Samoa Joe just always brings the worst out of Finn Balor type of thing too. So
What a baby.
then yeah, and then And then Oras Makazi gives his thoughts on some stuff, but again, it's not Pat McAfee, so no money, no buys, no nothing. So
Jesus.
So it's been Pat McAfee, you know that.
My God. Eviscerated.
Then Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart get interviewed, and they say that they're going to retain their NXT Women's Tag Team Championships on this show. So that was cool. They Shotzi Blackheart did way too much yelling though, just way too much. She was doing a lot of howling and y'all yelling, and I think Ember Moon just wanted her to calm down, but she never did. So then Mickie James gets her thoughts on what she thinks is going to happen in the NXT Women's Tag Title match, and this was be the last on-screen appearance Mickie James would make until Royal Rumble 2022, and then she got released right after this. So that's mean.
It's extremely mean.
Then we had the only match on the kickoff show. It was the NXT Tag Team Championship #1 contenders match. It was Breezango versus Killian Dane and Drake Maverick. Breezango came out dressed as pirates. Kind of a weird entrance, but you know, they're the only ones that come out and get like a special like entrance like that on the shows. They were cool guys though, so they're allowed to do that type of stuff.
They're so cool.
Yeah, they're really cool.
They're cool.
I loved the tag team between Killian Dane and Drake Maverick. It was really fun. Do you remember the theme song that they would have together?
It was so goofy.
It was like, do you remember they meshed it together too? They did like Killian Dane theme song, and then it'd be like the Fun Lovin' theme song, and it would go like back and forth and all that stuff. It was so funny. It was but Drake Maverick and Fandango start off the match, and eventually Drake Maverick isn't doing all that well, and this pisses off Killian Dane, and he just aggressively tags himself into the match because he's not happy with
fucking rude
Drake Maverick's performance. And doing this, Drake Maverick puts a pirate hat onto Killian Dane's head, and Killian Dane's just so pissed that this happened that he just takes the pirate hat off and just throws it outside the ring. He was really mad about it. Killian Dane and Drake Maverick start doing well. Killian Dane takes Drake Maverick and just chucks him outside the ring right onto Breezango. Eventually, Breezango, I'd say get the heat, but it's kind of, you can't really call it heat because they were both faces, but like they take control of the match for a while. Yeah. Get the cold on Drake Maverick. Eventually, Drake Maverick gets the hot tag onto what would you call it? I guess it would be. I guess in this case, it is a hot tag, right? If they're cold, so
yeah, it's a hottie.
Yeah, I never thought I'd hear you say that about Killian Dane, but you know,
let's go. He's a hottie.
Yeah. He goes off onto Breezango. Eventually, Drake Maverick gets tagged back in, and Breezango almost win when Tyler Breeze hits a Falcon Arrow onto Drake Maverick. And this proves Excalibur's point. There is people that kick out of the Falcon Arrow. It's Drake Maverick. So there you go. And then eventually,
he did the deal.
Yeah. Then eventually, Killian Dane takes back control. He power bombs Drake Maverick onto Fandango, and he ends up staying on him. And the Drake Maverick covers Fandango, and Killian Dane and Drake Maverick win, and they become the #1 contenders for the NXT Tag Team titles. So this was a good match here. I give it 3 stars. I thought it was entertaining. I thought Killian Dane could have been nicer to Drake Maverick though, but you can't have everything in life. So what did you think of this?
I thought it was good. Match was good. I liked the tag team. I thought it was funny. It worked, and it worked because they fucking won. So
yeah. going through career retrospectives. Unfortunately, by the end of the year, none of them would be in the company anymore. Well, I guess technically Drake Maverick, but no, because Drake Maverick wasn't brought back until this year, like last year or so. By the end of the year, none of them would be in the company anymore. Killian Dane and Drake Maverick would get the. If I remember correctly, I believe they got it like on the first Tuesday of NXT. Yeah, they lost the tag title match, and then they would Killian Dane would get released, and Drake Maverick would go up to the main roster and be part of the 24/7 title scene again. Then he got released, and then Killian Dane does the indies now pretty much. He's shown up on like one episode of Dynamite and jobbed out to Shawn Spears in like less than 5 minutes. And then he had a banger of a match last summer against Fred Rosser for the New Japan Strong Heavyweight Championship. So good for him. He's doing okay. Well, minus the Dynamite stuff, but technically that doesn't count because on Rampage. So and Rampage, as you know, Chris, doesn't count. So
it doesn't count. Nothing counts.
And then as for Drake Maverick, he would be brought back, and now he's like the head creative. He's on the creative team of Raw right now. So I'm very proud of him for that. Then as for Breezango, Tyler Breeze hasn't wrestled, I don't think, since he's left WWE. He mainly just hosts. He's one of the co-hosts of Up, Up, Down, Down with Austin Creed, known as Xavier Woods. And then as for Fandango, he would go on to wrestle the Indies himself. He's shown up in the NWA and teamed up with JTG as the Dirty Sexy Boys. Yeah, you want to know why that's a tag team, Chris? It's the NWA. That's all I can say about that. Obviously, it hasn't really worked. It's really not that over. Well, it's over in the NWA. Like, I don't even know what they call that. Not their performance center or whatever. But I personally don't enjoy it, mainly because I think Dirty Dongo could be doing a lot better. I think he did. I think he's signed with Impact now. I believe.
Yeah.
Now, so
I think it's for a year.
Yeah. So, there you go. That's the career retrospectives right there.
So Tyler Breeze is actually back in WWE too. Also.
Oh, when did he come back?
Like last year as a trainer.
Oh, okay. So that's why he hasn't been wrestling.
That's why you see him a lot in Up, Up, Down, Down. Okay. He wouldn't be on if he wasn't in the company.
Well, I just thought because it's Xavier Woods' channel, he kind of has like creative freedom to do what he wants with it.
So. He got signed last year as a trainer in the Performance Center, and he's in WWE 2K23 as a player and a GM.
Okay. Well, thanks for spoiling that for me, by the way. Thanks a lot. But isn't it? I forget is it Fandango or Tyler Breeze that has like a wrestling school with Shawn Spears?
That's Breeze too, also.
Okay. Is that school still a thing?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, okay. They run the day-to-day operations and everything. It's in Florida, so it's not that far away.
Well, I wouldn't know. I wasn't sure if the pandemic like would have killed it or whatever. So
no, it didn't.
Then William Regal gets interviewed. He talks about the success of night one of Stand and Deliver, the takeover version, and then he talked earlier in the show. We see Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly alive. I almost said revive. But he says that he had them show up with security and stuff, and he said that he did this so that way he could protect the main event, so that way nobody would get hurt and stuff. And he also says that Adam Cole would not be fined for hitting him on NXT. So go to GM right there, very nice guy.
He's a great guy.
Then Samoa Joe interviews Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly talks about what it meant to him to be with the Undisputed Era. And he said that he loved being in it, but he talked about how he got so blinded about doing what was necessary versus doing what was right. He talked about how he wants to start doing what's right, but Samoa Joe kind of called him out on this by saying that ever since Adam Cole turned on you, you've been kind of taking the dirty road. And Kyle O'Reilly says that sometimes you have to do that type of stuff when you're going up against Adam Cole. And he says that he wants to end this unsanctioned match nice and quick, but it does not happen.
No, it doesn't.
Then later, Samoa Joe interviews Adam Cole, and Adam Cole talks about how he's the reason that Kyle O'Reilly is anything in this business. He talks about how he was I forget exactly which one he said. I think he said he was the best man and Kyle was Riley, but I don't know, would it have been the opposite? I forget which one. But then he talks about how he's going to end Kyle O'Reilly and focus on just Adam Cole, pretty much. So these were good interviews here. What do you think of these interviews?
They were good. I liked them.
Then we have the actual show of night 2. Same people on commentary. Doing a career retrospective on Wade Barrett because I forgot. He stayed in commentary with NXT up until last fall, and now he does commentary with Michael Cole where he hates Rey Mysterio now. It's very mean to Rey. And then as for Beth Phoenix,
that douchebag son of his,
yeah.
Rey's.
And then and then as for Beth Phoenix, she would stay on commentary until NXT pretty much rebranded. I think her last show was it War Games, the first one of the 2.0 era. I think that was the last commentary gig.
Yeah.
And she's shown back up and done mixed tag matches with her husband Edge. I say that like Edge doesn't even like she's more of a star than Edge is. I'm just like, oh yeah, just with her husband Edge.
Just with her husband Edge, that just Edge.
Yeah, like he's just a normal guy apparently. So, but yeah, she's done mixed tag matches with Edge, and yeah, that's it. She's done like a Royal Rumble appearance and stuff. So then we had Poppy's performance to kick it off. It was pretty decent. Obviously, Poppy was a big NXT success. I think she's from like Massachusetts area. And this has obviously got like a big music career going and stuff. So I thought the performance was pretty decent. What did you think of it? Yeah, I know you're not a Poppy fan. So
I'm not a fan of music in my wrestling.
I don't blame you. Hey, at least it's better than Hardy. It's better than him. So
yeah, the long lost Hardy brother.
What was the name of the guy that did it at 25? Was it AC/DC? I forget what his name was, but the guy that like went forever at WrestleMania 25.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Then we had the first match. It was a ladder match to determine the undisputed NXT Cruiserweight Champion. It was interim NXT Cruiserweight Champion Santos Escobar versus NXT Cruiserweight Champion Jordan Devlin. Boy, do these matches feel special. So remember AEW's done these matches to death where it's like, oh, the champs can't wrestle anymore, so we got to crown an interim champion, and then they would do these matches to like death.
Yes.
I mean, I guess WWE kind of was too during like the pandemic and stuff because I remember they did a lot of matches like that, but whatever. The reason for this match was Jordan Devlin. He won the Cruiserweight Championship at Worlds Collide, and then they had obviously these plans that he was going to do all this stuff as Cruiserweight Champion, but those plans went AWOL when the pandemic hit and he was stuck in the UK. So William Regal announced that they were going to host a G1 style tournament to crown an interim champion. And originally Santos Escobar was in it as what was his name before he was Santos Escobar? Was it
El Hijo de Fantasma?
And he won the tournament, and then he ended up turning heel and forming Legado del Fantasma because he was kidnapping people in the parking lot and stuff. So Legado del Fantasma was
fucking rude.
That's more than just rude. That's like criminal activity right there. So, but do you remember when the speaking out allegations came out about Jordan Devlin? They were like, okay, wait, now they stopped calling him the interim champion. He was just the Cruiserweight champion. And then they're like, oh wait. I guess Devlin can come back now. So they started randomly calling him like the interim champion, like again and stuff. Like when Devlin started showing back up and all that type of stuff, it was really weird. And then Jordan Devlin returned on NXT, and when NXT UK started back up, they did this cool thing where like Devlin defended the title in the UK while Santos defended it in America, which was cool. And then when he was able to come back, they brought him back. And they announced a title unification match, and they made it a ladder match. Because Shawn Michaels came out and put a ladder in the ring, which was like, oh, that means it's gonna be a ladder match. I remember that's all Shawn Michaels.
Of course it is.
Yeah, I remember that. Remember that's all that Shawn Michaels did on that episode. He just came out, brought out a ladder, and just left. I remember that was funny.
He's just like, hey, Here it is. There's a ladder.
Imagine they didn't take it as if it was going to be a ladder match. They just looked at the ladder and were just like, whatever. Like, what's this ladder doing here? Oh, did you want us to have a chairs match?
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, they wanted us to have a tables match. But
Yeah.
the only way to win is you have to put your opponent through the announcer's table.
That's coming someday. By the way, some wrestling company is going to do that. So, but anyhow, we had this match. This is basically the WrestleMania 10 ladder match updated pretty much because they wrestle it like the WrestleMania 10 ladder match, which is cool. But yeah, they start chain wrestling each other. Devlin hits a Spanish fly onto Escobar, and he takes control of the first half of the match. Devlin hits a moonsault to the outside, and he goes back first, head into the announcer's table. Like, I think Devlin hurt himself more than Escobar. And he puts Escobar in the ring. He grabs a ladder. Escobar goes for Escobar hits a missile drop kick, sending the ladder into Devlin. He throws him into the steps, and Devlin hits him in the ribs with the ladder. Escobar and Devlin just start doing crazy stuff with the ladder that I'll talk about. Escobar hits a suicide dive onto Devlin, and he goes, there was a ladder set up like on the plexiglass and stuff, and he goes headfirst into it. Devlin hits a Spanish fly onto Escobar onto the ladder. Escobar hits like a drop kick, sending the ladder into his ribs. Devlin hits a springboard ace crusher off a ladder, which is cool. Superplex onto a ladder. Devlin has the match won at one point, but Legado del Fantasma interfere. They tip the ladder over and beat up Devlin and just leave. And then eventually there's a ladder set up in the corner, and Escobar tips the ladder over when Devlin's going for the belt, and Devlin goes through the ladder, and Escobar grabs the belt, and he becomes the new undisputed NXT Cruiserweight champion. This was a great ladder match here. I give it 4.25 stars. I thought it was great stuff. What'd you think of it?
I thought the match was great. It's a fantastic showcase of two just really talented wrestlers.
Yeah,
this match was great. So many fucking like ladder spots. Like they really used the ladder to like the maximum in this match. It was really fucking good.
I remember when this match happened, I thought it was odd that they had Devlin come back just to lose. But it made sense because he went back to the UK after this, and obviously they would have just been back in the same position probably.
Yeah.
So they kind of had to have Santos win this match.
And at the time, Jordan Devlin was a babyface.
Yeah, he was.
Which is weird because he's always been a heel. But during that little like period of time, like when he won the title,
yeah,
the Cruiserweight title, he would like randomly became a babyface.
And then I think he turned heel when he went back to the UK because he was only babyface for really this match, if you remember. Obviously, Santos Escobar would go on to lose the belts at I think on the NXT after this to Kushida. And basically, you could just kind of take what I said about Legado del Fantasma's career retrospective and put it on Santos because it's basically the same thing. I also think they had Santos win too because if you remember, his son comes out and like they do America Latin wrestling tradition where like Santos puts his son mask on. So I think they want so it made more sense when you kind of saw that happen and stuff like that. So as for Jordan Devlin, he would go on to have like one final run in the UK. He had that really great feud with Ilya Dragunov for the NXT UK title, which is technically still going on to this day. He moved over to NXT America. And now which is just regular NXT, and now he has a new wrestling name that we don't say here because it's banned from the show. And then he's contended for the title a few times, and now he's back with his feud with Ilya Dragunov. So he's doing some good things. Next, MSK get interviewed. They talk about winning the NXT tag team titles, and they look forward to the match with Drake Maverick and Killian Dane. And they give predictions of who they think they're going to win the the NXT title match or the unsanctioned match, and they both have different predictions. Good that this wasn't Shawn Michaels booking this, because that would have been a reason for Shawn Michaels to be like, oh, they have to bring up as a tag team now. They can't have different opinions.
Yep. That's just a reason to break them up.
Yeah. By the way, I know we talk about how if MSK had stuck around, like if Nash Carter didn't get released, MSK would be. I remember you said MSK would be together still to this day. Don't assume that, because remember who's booking NXT now. By the way, don't assume that.
Yeah,
I know you could say. I know you'd say, well, Shawn Michaels isn't that stupid to break up MSK. He's breaking up Andre Chase, so don't assume.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. I have it. Yeah. Next match was the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship match. It was Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart defending the titles against Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. Talk about the worst tag titles that's ever been created, and this is a chance for us to talk about. And that's the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships, because I don't think they ever wanted to make these belts. I think they were pretty much forced to make these belts. If you remember, it was originally the women's tag titles would be defended on all three brands. I think what happened is they had to stop having if you remember, they stopped having the main roster be included with NXT because they wanted to avoid the spread of COVID as much as possible. So pretty much they had to create NXT Women's Tag Team titles. You remember they did that weird thing where like Shayna and Nia defended the titles, and they did that like weird finish where they had like Adam Pearce come out and like do a Montreal screw job or whatever, pretty much.
That was stupid.
And then they made a new NXT Women's Tag Belts. And I bet you're thinking, Chris, I bet they were really smart since how they crowned the champions. I bet they were like this big tournament and stuff. Nope, they just gave them to Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And then they like lost the belts like a half hour later. Like it was so weird.
So bizarre.
And then Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell became the number one contenders. They had Shotzi Blackheart and Candice LeRae had a history with each other because Shotzi Blackheart had screwed over Candice LeRae of the NXT Women's title and stuff like that. They had started forming the Way, but the Way couldn't really. I think they were building to it, and I think it was meant to be. Indy Hartwell was supposed to show up at Halloween Havoc and reveal herself as like an alliance with Candice LeRae, but they couldn't do that for a while because Indy Hartwell got COVID, so they didn't really properly form the Way until I think War Games that year. So yeah, really, I told you it's really weird. Basically, this is all COVID that is this storyline happening right here. Like, if you want to know why this happened, COVID. That's why it's happened. So we had the match.
That was the easiest excuse to use back then.
Yeah. But that's pretty much why it happened. Like,
exactly, yeah. It's what everyone used.
Yeah. The match is good. Everybody starts brawling with each other.
They're the brawling ladies, not the brawling.
Yeah. Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart come out in the tank. And Ember Moon, I think, legitimately forgot to bring the belt with her because like she went to the ring and like forgot it was on the tank. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, they brawl around. They dominate Shotzi Blackheart. They get the heat on her for a while. And then eventually Ember Moon gets the hot tag. And she starts going off on everybody. Eventually, they do a Tower of Doom spot where Indy Hartwell hits a powerbomb and lays everybody out and it nearly gets a victory. Indy Hartwell hits a sky high onto Ember Moon and she kicks out of that. Then eventually the faces make a comeback. Shotzi Blackheart hits a suicide dive onto the outside. And this was at that time where like it was very noticeable that Shotzi Blackheart would try to do all this high risk stuff and it would be like damage into her body because she doesn't completely miss the dive, but the dive looked like it hurt her more than it hurt like the wrestlers IRL.
Oh yeah.
And then Ember Moon, and that problem has not been fixed, by the way. Nope. And then Ember Moon hits moonsault onto everybody. Then they hit a flapjack into a pay dirt combination, but it gets kicked out of. And then Ember Moon hits a double eclipse onto both women, and Shotzi Blackheart hits the senton onto Candice LeRae for the win. So that was the end of the match. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was a good tag match. out of like both nights, if we were doing all the matches together, it's probably the weakest match of the whole show. But I thought it was still good stuff. What did you think of it?
I thought the match was good. The way storyline gets kookier from here.
It does.
But yeah, I liked it.
Going through career retrospectives, the Way would go on to win the belts. I think like a month later in that no DQ match from Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart, and then the Way would hold the titles until they lost them to Shirai and Stokes. They would put Dexter Lumis and have him, and eventually her and Indy got married. I'm sorry, him and Indy got married. And then eventually Candice LeRae got pregnant in real life, so she had to take time off. Did she ever leave the company technically? Because I know she returned, but was she ever actually gone from the company?
I think her contract did expire, but when Johnny came back, she came back.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if it actually expired. Because like because
it expired like 3 months or so before they both came back. 3 or 4 months. It expired over the before the summer.
And as for Indy Hartwell, then eventually when NXT rebranded into the 2.0 era, she teamed up with who's that woman that she teamed up with like right when the 2.0 era started? I forget who it is, but like it was like something Paraja or something.
Oh, it was Steph DeLander. It was Persia Parada.
Yeah, they teamed up. They never won the belts, and then she got released, as I talked about, and pretty much Indy Hartwell, as you call her every week. What do you call Indy Hartwell every week?
The jobber of NXT.
Because she never wins. She's a freaking loser. So
that's
not her fault.
True.
Huh?
It's fucking true.
It is. And then as for Shotzi Blackheart, she would get called up to the main roster shortly after this. She teamed up with Tegan Nox in like a really random tag team. Do you remember too? They would like beat the champions and never get a title match. They just never got one.
They kept getting the push that never happened.
And then Tegan Nox got released, and then Shotzi got her name shortened to just Shotzi. Because for some reason Blackheart, Vince didn't like that name for some reason. And then Shotzi turned heel randomly for no reason, and then didn't do much as a heel. Had that terrible performance in the Money in the Bank ladder match that she won't let you talk about. And then
watching everything.
Then she turned face, teamed up with Raquel Rodriguez for like one match, and then she had that awful match with Ronda Rousey at Survivor Series War Games. Then she disappeared, came back and had a bad match with Charlotte Flair, and now her and Natalya are a tag team, and are going to be in the WrestleMania Showcase match. Great career retrospective right there. Isn't that great stuff?
Fantastic.
And then as for Ember Moon, she stayed with NXT. She was released like shortly after the 2.0 era rebranded. I think she showed up on like 2 episodes and then was gone. And then
That's sad.
Huh?
How sad.
You were very sad. And then she signed with AEW. Looked like she was going to be the one to dethrone Jade Cargill for the TBS Women's title, and then didn't.
What a fucking.
Then she, yeah. Then she had an unsafe match with I forget that wrestler. She had like an unsafe match with, but she had an unsafe match with her, and then they turned it into a gimmick. And she's a heel now as the ROH Women's
Marina
World Champion.
Shafir, because she sucks. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It wasn't Marina Shafir. It's a different.
I
match,
swear
so.
it was Marina Shafir because that was one of them, and she was the reason for that. She was fucking awful.
It wasn't Marina Shafir. It was some like jobber from the area.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't remember then. Yeah, but the high profile one I remember is fucking Marina. If you guys want to see unsafe work, oh boy.
Yeah. Next, it shows an ad for NXT moving to Tuesdays, and they about addressed it as good as you could get it. They remember when TNA had to move back to like Thursdays, and they tried to make it seem like it was like the greatest thing ever. At least NXT didn't do that. They just said we're moving to Tuesdays now. We're gonna take over Tuesdays. So at least they didn't like pretend it was like a good, huh?
Well, it was the greatest thing ever because they fucking lost.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, can't compete on Mondays. We're just going to go to Thursdays again because it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Thursdays are way better anyway, guys.
Next, we have a NXT North American Championship match. It's Johnny Gargano defending against I must have Austin Theory, but Austin Theory was in his corner. It was Johnny Gargano defending against Bronson Reed. Obviously, this was heel Johnny Gargano. I didn't love heel Johnny Gargano. He did try to make it work as best as he could, but Johnny Gargano is just a better babyface than he is a heel. Johnny Gargano and Austin Theory do like a no looks high five together, which I always loved the way he did that. I remember Wade Barrett too was like putting that over, like, look at that great high five that Johnny Gargano and Austin Theory did. And like Beth Phoenix was like, come on, that's not that impressive. Like, what are you talking about? You haven't done a no look high five like that? Like Wade Barrett was like loving that high five right there. He was loving it. We had the match. Bronson Reed just destroys Gargano at the beginning portion of this match. Like, I think he was trying to kill the dude. Like, he was just destroying him. It was looking pretty bad for Johnny.
He probably had a vendetta against him.
It was just looking bad for Johnny Gargano. Like, he was just getting no offense. He was getting nothing in. Like, it was just not good for Johnny Gargano. I know. And he's the heel too, but feeling bad for the heel. It was like, what's going on there? He tries the best he can to get some offense in, but Bronson Reed's just way too powerful for him. He's just not letting him have any. He does a cool thing where he does like a slingshot spear, and he goes to the injured ribs of Bronson Reed, and Bronson Reed doesn't go down onto the floor though. He was just not very nice to Gargano in this match. He was just not letting him get anything.
Fucking mean.
I felt so bad for Johnny Gargano.
Mean. So mean to him.
I mean, in fairness to Bronson Reed, he is trying to win a championship, but he should have tried to do it in like a more respectful way, not like in this mean. He was just being so mean, like
mean man.
Hey, don't worry, but he does the Josh Alexander later in the year. It's even meaner. So he's Yeah. But yeah, Johnny Gargano is being very nice, and he's just. I know. Vic Joseph tried to say he pushed Bronson Reed ribs first into the announce table, but I would say like he was just kind of placing him there, and Vic Joseph overtook it like he was being pushed there. Like Vic Joseph went way too much into that.
He sold
it. Huh?
He sold it.
Yeah. But Johnny Gargano starts targeting the ribs of Bronson Reed. I know you could say this is mean, but this is just self-defense at this point.
It's so mean.
It's self-defense.
Everyone's mean match.
But yeah, he targets the injured ribs of Bronson Reed. He hits a few super kicks into the ribs. My favorite thing of the match was there be various times in the match where Johnny Gargano went to do a super kick, and Bronson Reed would keep trying to block. He's like, okay, he's gonna hit me in the head, and then Gargano would like tease the super kick and say, kick him in the ribs. And then at one point, Gargano goes for the super kick, and like Bronson Reed's like blocking it like twice. He blocks it to the face, and then he blocks it in the ribs. And Gargano just hits him in the face anyways. It's like, ooh, what a great trickster Johnny Gargano is. Like, what a great trickster he is.
The great trickster, John E. Gargano.
Johnny Trickster. That's what we should call him now.
Johnny Trickster.
Yeah, Johnny Trick.
Johnny Trick, baby. John Trick.
Yeah. Eventually, Bronson Reed mounts a comeback. He hits a bridge German suplex on Gargano, but Gargano kicks out of it. He hits an underhook powerbomb. Gargano kicks out of that. Gargano hits 2 super kicks in a row, and Bronson Reed kicks out of that. Bronson Reed has the match won at one point with a powerbomb, but Austin Theory puts Gargano's foot on the rope, so he's cheating.
Peter.
And then Bronson Reed goes for a suicide dive, and Gargano moves and he hits Austin Theory, and then he super kicks Bronson Reed. Gargano hits one final beat 2 times in a row, but he doesn't.
So 2 final beats.
Huh?
So 2 final beats.
Yep, and he gets the win. Johnny Gargano retains the North American Championship, and Bronson Reed leads with nothing. So
good job.
Huh?
So what? Who cares? He left with nothing.
great match here. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was it was just Johnny Takeover doing Johnny Takeover things. So, what did you think of this?
I think it was a great match. Honestly, it was a really good match.
Yeah.
Again, John Takeover, Takeover, Jonathan Takeover takes over Takeover again,
Yes, he does.
and they didn't have to scrape him off the mat.
They did not. They would a few weeks later in that cage match, though. They would a few weeks later.
Isaiah Swerve Scott,
Yeah.
poor guy, he got to fucking scrape off the mat after that.
Yeah, yes, he did. Yes, they did. And ever since, you know what? Maybe that's what screwed over Isaiah Swerve Scott's. If you think about it, ever since he got hit with that tsunami, his wrestling career got weird after that. If you think about it,
He never was the same.
yeah,
Squashed.
Yeah, great match here. Like I said, going through career retrospectives, Bronson Reed will go on to win the belt a couple weeks later in that awesome cage match. Then eventually Johnny Gargano just kind of did his thing for a while in NXT. Eventually he left the company because of the new direction NXT 2.0 was going to go in. And then he was brought back when Triple H took over pretty much. And he feuded with Austin Theory. He's with Dexter Lumis now, and now he's back in NXT as like a one-off to feud with Grayson Waller in a potential unsanctioned match. We don't know if it's going to be an unsanctioned match yet, but that's if Grayson Waller signs the contract tonight, which we'll see if he will. As for Austin Theory, what a career dip, huh?
He's theorying.
Yeah, what a career difference he's had. After this, he would get called up to the main roster. He was like Vince McMahon's protege because he found the egg that he was looking for or something, so it made him like him or something. And then I'm not making that up too. That happened. Vince lost an egg, and Austin Theory found it, and he became the protege of Vince McMahon. And Vince forced him down our throats. They had him win the United States Championship and win Money in the Bank, which was stupid. Chris and I have talked about that before. And then he failed to cash in Money in the Bank, and then he had a career resurgence where he won the U.S. title. He's a better serious wrestler, and it looks like he's going to get put over by Cena at Mania, which is awesome. So
yeah, Cena's going to put him over, right? He's going to put him under his shoulders. He's going to drive him down to the mat and become the new United States champion.
We'll see. And then Bronson Reed, he lost the North American title to Isaiah Swerve Scott. And he was randomly released for no reason. They never gave a reason about it. He was just randomly released. And then he worked the Indies.
Why? Because he was fat.
Probably.
Vince didn't like his work ethic.
I guess not. And then he worked in New Japan and Impact Wrestling for the most part. And then he was brought back last year, and he hasn't done all that much yet. He had a really good performance in the Elimination Chamber match last month for the U.S. title, but since then he hasn't done all that much. But I think he's getting a big push after Mania. So
yeah, Triple H just waiting on a few people.
Yeah. What's he waiting on?
After Mania.
Oh, I mean, imagine just sitting around waiting for a few people, just sitting around, just waiting.
Just waiting for a few people, just waiting around.
Next match was the NXT Championship match. It was Finn Balor defended against Karrion Kross with Scarlett ringside. The reason this match was happening was because if you remember, Karrion Kross got the rocket ship push. He was in
the beginning.
Yeah, he was a dominant monster. He won the NXT Championship at NXT TakeOver 30, but unfortunately, he got injured in the match. So he had to vacate the title 2 days later. And they couldn't have Keith Lee win that match because he was going to Raw. So they were booked in a corner there. I think they announced he was going to Raw. I don't think they announced it at that takeover if I remember, but they announced it, but it was obviously in progress and stuff. Because I remember they announced it SummerSlam he's going to be at Raw. So they couldn't. So he vacated the belt. Finn Balor won the belt. And then he was putting on banners for the title. And it was weird how this happened. I think 2 months out, a month after Balor won the belt, he got injured, and they didn't want to crown a new champion again. So they just had him hold the belt pretty much until he was ready to come back because his injury wasn't as serious as Karrion Kross's was. And then Finn Balor though put on beta matches with the title. He retained it against the likes of Kyle O'Reilly, Pete Dunne, and Adam Cole. And then Karrion Kross returned, and they had that great segment where Finn Balor just asked him what took him so long. They had like a face-off. And, Karrion Kross was back to go after the title that he wanted. But Finn Balor was not going to give up this title lightly. And during a tag match where they had with each other, Finn Balor inadvertently knocked over Scarlett. And this sent Karrion Kross into a rage, and he just destroyed Finn Balor. And this made Finn Balor question what Karrion Kross fights for. Does he fight for competition, or does he just fight with rage? So he said we were gonna find that out at NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. Did he fight with rage, or did he fight with intent? Well, let's talk about the match, and we'll find out. This was a great match right here. Both men kind of feel each other out. No one really gets the advantage over each other. Finn Balor has this cool entrance, by the way, where it like shows all of like his past NXT moments and stuff. So, because this was for the most part like his last match in NXT. So
Yeah, he has one more.
yeah. So his NXT career for the second time was winding down. So Finn Balor dominates the beginning of the match. He works, and Finn Balor actually came out, and he had like his shoulder, an X over his shoulder, implying either two things. Like that's the same injury that he had when he had to give up the Universal Championship, and that's the same injury that Karrion Kross has. He was just fueling Karrion Kross's fire. But yeah, Finn Balor, and it was funny too because you could tell he just recently painted this. Because I don't know if you remember this from the match, Chris, but Karrion Kross like gets the paint like on his forehead, and at first I thought he was busted open, but it was just like the paint on from Finn Balor. So you can tell Finn Balor recently had just painted it there. So yeah, Finn Balor dominates the injured shoulder of Karrion Kross. He really targets it for a while. Eventually, he hits a spinning kick right to the abdomen. And I like what he does here because Karrion Kross acts like he no-sells it, but then the wind just gets knocked out of him. And this is he did this move back at NXT TakeOver 31, which ended up injuring Kyle O'Reilly like legit for a few weeks. So Finn Balor's hits a double stomp to the abdomen. He gets him into a abdominal stretch. Eventually, Karrion Kross hits a vicious clothesline, taking out Finn Balor. He hits a Seidel suplex and then a German suplex. He hits a big boot onto him. He locks Finn Balor into a sleeper hold. Finn Balor fights out of all of that stuff. Eventually, he mounts a comeback. He hits a slim blade onto Karrion Kross, but Karrion Kross kicks out of it. He hits a drop kick into the corner. He hits the coup de grace onto him, but when Karrion Kross kicks out, he locks him into the cross jacket submission. And Finn Balor is able to get to the ropes. He reverses it into a submission himself, but Karrion Kross fights out of that. He hits vicious blows to the back of the head that completely knock out Finn Balor. A German suplex, a Seidel suplex, and then the hidden blade that he likes to hit now onto Finn Balor, covers him and gets the title. This was a great match here. This made both guys look really strong in this match, and I give it 4 3/4 stars. This was just great stuff here, and they were obviously giving Karrion Kross a recovery push for all that lost time he had when he was injured and stuff. What did you think of this?
I loved it. That match was great. It was a fantastic match. Again, second to last match for Finn in NXT. Just great. Just a great match.
And then they have a rematch. I think in like May or maybe like April, where Finn Balor lost that match, and then that was Finn Balor's like last match he's had in NXT, and then he get called up to main for the second time. And we've done a career retrospective before on Finn Balor. You can watch the Raw retro we did from like October 2017 because that's where we did that. The only thing new we could say about him is he's still the leader of the Judgment Day, and that faction's just doing really well right now, doing awesome. As for Karrion Kross's career, he always starts out really well, but it's plagued with yeah buts. Unfortunately for Karrion Kross, they called him up to the main roster as NXT champion, and they had him lose to like Jeff Hardy in like 2 minutes. And then he lost the belt. He was called up to the main roster. He came out like as a gladiator where he had that helmet onto him and stuff like that. It was like really stupid. And then he was randomly released for no reason. He worked the Indies. He worked specifically Bloodsport, New Japan, and Ric Flair's last match. Well, he didn't have Ric Flair's last match. It was just the event he wrestled at. That would have been Ric Flair would be dead if he had wrestled Karrion Kross on that show.
Yes.
And then he shortly after that he returned to WWE, and his return started out really well. He was in a really good feud with Drew McIntyre, and then he's just not as over now as he once was. Chris and I talked about that on the episodes of the Wrestling Rundown, when it was WWE Aftershock. So yeah, that's basically the career retrospective of Karrion Kross. I mean, he's still doing fine, but he's just not doing like as successful as we want him to. Then it shows another Frankie Monet vignette announcing that she's going to debut in NXT on Tuesday, which she did, and she won. So good for her. Then we had the Legado del Fantasma get interviewed. Santos Escobar talks about how he threw everything at Jordan Devlin, but he still was able to get up, but he was still walked out champion. He said that he's going to be the NXT Cruiserweight champion forever, which was a lie. He lied to us. I don't know why he lied to us like that. Then we had the actual main event. It was the unsanctioned match. It was Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly. Epic. The build-up, they both obviously had known each other for years. They worked New Japan and ROH together. They had classic feuds there. Specifically at the Wrestle Kingdom, it was the 2017 Wrestle Kingdom. They had a match for the ROH title there. I think it was like the first time the ROH title had been defended in Japan. So, and I think the only time it's been defended in Japan. And then they both got signed to WWE. I'm pretty sure they were both signed around the same time. I think Adam Cole was technically signed first, but he didn't show up for like a few weeks. They came in together as the Undisputed Era with Bobby Fish, and they ruled NXT for a while, winning all the types of championships like the tag, the North American and main championships. At one point, all members of Undisputed Era had the belts. But then something happened, unfortunately. Kyle O'Reilly started to break out on his own, and he had one-on-one matches, put on clinics with Finn Balor, but he never won the championship. And then at NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day, they had been teasing a split in the Undisputed Era. And Adam Cole turned his back on the Undisputed Era and kicked out Kyle O'Reilly. And Adam Cole said that he did this because he felt like Kyle O'Reilly was starting to kind of do his own thing, and he got jealous about that. He was offended that he tried to bring in Finn Balor to the Undisputed Era. And they did that segment where Adam Cole nearly ended his career by brainbustering him onto the bottom of the steps. And eventually Kyle O'Reilly returned. He cost Adam Cole the NXT Championship. And this feud just got really personal. They did a thing where Adam Cole showed up at his gym and attacked him. They did a thing where they nearly ran each other off the road. So it got to the point where William Regal said that your rivalry is so personal that the only way to settle this is on an unsanctioned match at NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. And it was really good stuff. They did a really good Prime Target that I definitely suggest you should watch to build this up. And we had the match. Fantastic.
I don't think we need to go blow by blow with this because it's 40 minutes long. So.
Yeah, but I'm gonna.
I will even interject myself to this. I always say there are wrestling matches that you owe it to yourself to watch once in your lifetime. I've seen this match once in my lifetime. You owe it to yourself, even with pandemic and all, to watch this match. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, just watch it. You don't need to go into depth on it. It's just watch it for yourself. It's really, words can't do it justice how great this match is.
Yeah. It's just fantastic. The only thing I'll say about this match is honestly, I think this match legitimately took a year off of their career. I think because if you remember, they haven't really their injuries. I think from this match, whatever they were, caught up to more specifically Kyle O'Reilly. Like Kyle O'Reilly is still out. Like, it's crazy, but just
like a lot of his injuries that he received during this time in NXT, he's still recovering now in AEW. Like he's I don't even know how long he's gonna be
His
out.
neck's all fucked up too.
Yeah, he is so him and Adam Cole were on the same wavelength. I think Kyle O'Reilly's though was like way more serious, and you got to consider too. Dude suffers from seizures on and off, and he's like a type 1 diabetic, so he has battled adversity through his whole life just to be a pro wrestler, and the fact that he's able to put on these insane kind of fucking matches
Hard
with that fucking handicap.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, just go watch this match. I won't break it down blow by blow. It's fantastic. Just a hell of a unsanctioned match. And
a hell of a way to close out that chapter.
Yeah, of NXT. They eventually, but yeah, Kyle O'Reilly wins, which made all the sense in the world. They had big plans for Kyle O'Reilly. Obviously, they wanted him to be like the next big star of NXT. We'll talk about why that doesn't happen in a minute. But just a fantastic match to kind of close out. This was kind of the end of the Undisputed Era chapter of NXT, because we always talk about NXT. This is this era and that era. I would say the Undisputed Era era of NXT starts. I would say 2017, but more so like 2019 when after the Gargano Ciampa feud is over. Because even though the Undisputed Era were around in 2017, I would say like 2017 to like 2019 was the Gargano Ciampa era, and the 2019 era, and the 2019 was like to like 2021 was the Undisputed Era, chapter of NXT.
Because this
is just fantastic.
It was a big coup for WWE to get them.
I also want to say the last match, by the way, that ever took place between two former Undisputed Era members after the group disbanded. Do you guys remember what it was? Here's a little trivia for you.
Wasn't it? Didn't they have one at like at the takeover at SummerSlam? Like the loser leave NXT match.
They did, but who was it? Who was the actual final Undisputed Era match? I bet not a lot of people would guess this. I'll let you guys think about it.
Roderick Strong versus Kyle O'Reilly?
You're close. Roderick's one of them.
So would it have been Roderick Strong versus Bobby Fish?
Yep. It was Roderick Strong versus Bobby Fish. This would be right when Roderick joined and correction, founded the Diamond Mine and fucking had a match with Bobby Fish. It was his last match on NXT before he got released, believe it or not. So there's
I remember that now. Yeah.
No, I think it was the SummerSlam takeover match because
was it?
Bobby Fish was already out of the company before the SummerSlam. Yeah.
Oh. Well,
Bobby Fish was out. Bobby Fish was out of the company and
I thought this Unsanctioned match was their final match, but fair enough if that's the one. But
because they had
okay, fair enough. I will say though, all things considered, that was the final match before that match, I guess, because they didn't have any other matches before this one. So
yeah,
there you go. My bad. I thought that was the final match. I swear that happened after.
Yeah. No, because Bobby Fish was released before SummerSlam that year. So.
Yeah, there you go. Fair enough.
But yeah, going through the career retrospectives, Kyle O'Reilly, this is unfortunate because you could tell Triple H in the Black and Gold era had big plans for Kyle O'Reilly. I think he probably would have dethroned Karrion Kross of the title. But then, the Samoa Joe stuff happened. And then obviously NXT rebranded, and you could just tell the Vince did not see anything in O'Reilly because he immediately went back to like the tag division, like really randomly too. Because you remember he was meant to be in that like 4-way match,
Yeah.
to crown the vacant champion. He just decided they just decided, I'm gonna give the match to Von Wagner instead.
I think he was. Again, I think he had hurt his leg.
Yeah. It wasn't necessarily
Yeah.
that Vince didn't see anything in him, although that's partly true also. It was the fact that he injured his leg. He's right. Because there was reports everywhere that he hurt himself.
It was just a combination of all everything.
And then
Yeah, I will say, the fact that I remember that the minute Chris brought that up just shows you how much I don't want to remember that fucking era of transition. So there you go. Fucking
such a weird
PTSD over here.
yeah,
Yeah. What were you saying, Chris? Go ahead.
but
such a weird
and
time.
Kyle O'Reilly.
Hold on. Let Chris go.
It's such a weird time period.
Yeah, it really is. I hate
Yeah,
it.
it is.
I hate it every single minute of it.
But then this is funny how it happened.
Go
And
ahead.
this is a funny thing that happened. Kyle O'Reilly let his contract expire, I think, and he had his last match in NXT against Von Wagner. Then wasn't it like not even 2 weeks later he showed up in AEW
Yes. with
Adam Cole and Bobby Fish
and Kyle O'Reilly. Yeah, I remember. I watched that episode. I watched their reuniting on Dynamite also,
and then
which was fucking insane. But I was
Yeah,
pissed.
and then,
I was pissed they didn't come out as the
Kyle
Undisputed
O'Reilly,
Era in full. They just had the Red Dragon theme, and then Adam Cole came out right afterwards. And I'm like, I hate the Red Dragon theme, by the way. Can I just say it's one of the worst themes in wrestling? Fuck that theme. It's so god-awful. What a game! It's so out of tune. Jesus Christ. Go ahead.
It's over.
But then but yeah, then Kyle O'Reilly, unfortunately, he was doing really well in AEW. He was putting on beta matches, but again, his injuries have just caught up to him, so he's been out of action for a while. They were meant to do a feud between the Undisputed Elite versus the Elite, but that never happened because because Bobby Fish was gone and then Kyle O'Reilly was injured. Which is, I always think it's weird. Like they had Undisputed Elite turn, but they knew they weren't going to be able to do the feud for a while. It's always just weird how they did that.
They weren't even going to do the feud forever.
They knew Kyle O'Reilly was
Well, okay. So I know the story about how that happened. So they originally thought that Cole was cleared to compete. So that's why they ended up doing the segment. He ended up getting checked out by a third doctor because he got cleared by 2 really good physicians, but then apparently they found something within him, which is why they found out his concussion was way more serious from Forbidden Door than they originally anticipated and realized. So they told him, dude, no, like you cannot go through with this. You have to sit out. You have to. So, and Kyle O'Reilly, we knew why. I mean, I think he ended up just getting so injured that he didn't even realize it until like the day after they did the segment. And so he ended up needing surgery bad. And I think it was related to one of his he ended up having another seizure, which was caused by his litany of injuries that he's had. So he couldn't go through with the thing. That's why it wasn't the fact that they didn't have plans. It's just that the timing was so piss poor for the injuries that occur. That's basically what happened. Because they were originally fine that day, and then they realized, and then Adam Cole realized, oh wait, no, I'm not, and then fucking Kyle got injured again because of a seizure. So
he had neck surgery,
and then
that's right. Yeah, that's the other thing too. He had neck surgery that he thought wasn't as serious until he got to a doctor. Also, my bad.
That's fair.
But he also had a seizure in between that time period. I remember, which was fucking terrifying. By the way, I think it may have happened during the segment. Now that I think about it, the segment we're talking about, because he was cutting a promo, and then he had to sit down all of a sudden, and fucking Bobby Fish is checking on him. Is like, dude, you all right? And then like Adam Cole calls him out or whatever, and they have this fucking thing with him, and then yeah, it was a fucking scary situation. Like it was a really scary situation. So it might have been That might have been when Kyle went and got himself checked and he realized, no, I need fucking surgery. But nobody knew that at the time, including Kyle, including Adam. So, that's what it was, unfortunately.
And then as for career retrospective Adam Cole, he would give his notice to WWE. His last match was the TakeOver in SummerSlam. And then he signed with AEW at All Out. And then obviously he started out fairly well. He had a really good feud with Adam Page for the AEW World title. And then he was injured. He had that four-way match, which was the big concussion thing. And then he just recently returned, and he's kind of just getting his feet back right in the wrestling business again. Pretty much.
Yeah, that whole four-way they did was a fucking mess.
Yeah,
like that's I still said to this day that was the most ill-conceived match that Tony could have ever booked. When you consider Okada's not used to having four-way matches at all.
Yep.
Adam Cole hadn't been in the four-way in I don't even know how long, and he was injured going in and tried to tough it out just to make the fucking match, which caused him to get injured worse, by the way.
Yep.
It should have been one-on-one between Jay White and Adam Cole, and it should have been Kazuchika Okada versus whoever the fuck was in that four-way. I don't even remember who else was in that now.
Okada. Well, you saying Okada now. So.
No, yeah, I said Okada, so who was the other one? I don't even remember. That's how much I don't like that fucking four-way now.
Yeah.
But whoever that was should have been the one to fight Okada for the IWGP title. Simple as that. I think it was a fucking mistake to ever book that four-way. It never should have happened.
Yeah.
Like, they should have changed their plans right from that fucking moment Adam got injured, because none of that show would have fucking happened. Guaranteed.
Yeah, for sure. And that's NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. We finally reviewed it all.
I'm surprised.
So now
by the way, I'm surprised that you guys got it done in like 3 hours. Like, that's a shocker, considering it was a 2-night event. Real quick, so I'm actually going to put you guys on mute because I already have the promos ready to go. I have the we didn't get the letter grade yet. Bah! Yeah, you're right. Go ahead. Sorry.
So Chris, with the 2 nights, what would you give NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver as a letter grade?
I'll give it a solid, strong A. It was a great show. Watching it, remember, like, I didn't have time to watch it, but I remember a lot of the shit that happened on the show. The matches were all really fucking good. The only outlier there was the women's tag match that really didn't have a place on the card. But other than that, like the whole show, like the woman main eventing in the first night made a whole lot of sense because Raquel was on her rocket ship push to the top. But yeah, it's an A show for me. Mainly and partly because I'm biased, but the men's match on night 2 to close out Stand and Deliver was probably one of the best matches I've ever seen ever.
Yeah,
it got me off my seat plenty of times on false finish and how brutal the match was, and it just went everywhere. It was chaos. It was amazing, and it was awesome. Loved it.
We didn't even give it a star rating. I think we both agreed on 5 stars right there.
Oh,
right?
5 stars. It's probably why it's an A pay-per-view for me, because it's just so fucking that match alone itself bumps it up for me. It would have been like an A show for me, but it's an A hovering around an A+ in that range. Yeah.
I agree. I give this show an A for all the same reasons. The only thing that hurts this show, obviously, is it doesn't take place. I mean, obviously it can't because with the times, but it's tough to watch the pandemic shows. I would say this is probably like one of the easiest pandemic shows you can watch because at least there's like somewhat of a crowd there with because they actually had like fans there in real life and all that type of stuff. So there was somewhat of an atmosphere there, of like a crowd and stuff like that. A hell of a show though. Obviously too, every match pretty much delivers. And like I talked about earlier, I thought going back and watching this show, it would make me excited for this year's Stand and Deliver. But that's not the case.
Did the exact opposite. You said the show was great, and then you saw this show, and it's like, and it's gone.
Yeah, like I have no any interest I would have probably had for a Stand and Deliver just went out the window after seeing this. So
that's Shawn Michaels NXT for you. So yeah, fucking hell.
But obviously, as we talked about, unfortunately, NXT Black and Gold wouldn't last much longer. Pretty much what happened is, I think Vince got frustrated that NXT Black and Gold failed to, beat AEW, and I think he wanted to change NXT because he was like, you guys didn't deliver in the ratings, something clearly didn't work, so he completely changed NXT. Also, to Triple H's health, he ended up having not necessarily a heart attack, but he had heart issues last year. So unfortunately, it caused NXT to get changed to the 2.0 era NXT. And believe it or not,
let's just call it as it is. Call me Tim Fall, whatever the fuck you want to call me. Vince stressed him out so bad that he had the cardiac event. Continue.
But unfortunately, ironically enough, not the worst era of NXT. Then we have NXT.
Yeah,
isn't
that fucking wild? Shawn Michaels is a worse booker than Vince. That's fucking crazy. And, I'm convinced Bruce Pritchard could do a better job than Shawn at this point. Seriously, and he's fucking sucks. God, he sucks.
But yeah, so unfortunately, when Noah says "not my NXT," he's not one. This is our NXT right here. This is these shows, and I think that's why I get sad when I watch. I'm probably gonna watch anything NXT Takeover related now, because you just see
it's not even a takeover. Really realize it's an NXT show now. That's all it is.
Yeah, but if you watch a Takeover, you could just see the Triple H influence in NXT is like completely gone now. That doesn't exist anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair though, we're talking about how sad it is, but at the same time, the main roster is what NXT Black and Gold is. And you know what? If NXT has to suck for that to happen, good. And I say that because as bad as that brand sucks, it's how it always should have been regardless. How many times, Owen, when you were hanging out with Mike and I, and Mike specifically said, that would be like NXT being better than Raw and SmackDown. It's like Velocity and Heat being better than Raw or SmackDown. He's not wrong. He's not wrong at all.
Yeah.
And now it's the fucking way it should be, where the main roster is the better fucking product. It's the Black and Gold NXT influence on the main roster, full on. Like, all the way in. Even with the Vince guys that are in there, it's still run by Triple H. It's still run great. It's still run by, a guy that gives a shit, with the exception of the women's tag division and, Brock fucking forcing his hand on Omos. But even with that, I mean, this Mania, look at the Mania coming up.
Yeah.
If that means NXT has to suck, oh well. I'd much rather NXT sucking and the main roster being fucking amazing than the fucking opposite, to be fully honest, because I think that's what chased a lot of people off.
To be fair, I think that's why NXT was losing most of the time to AEW every week, because the main roster sucks so bad. So, because Steve Coakley brought it up. Nobody wanted to watch NXT because the main roster sucks so bad, so they would stick it to, unfortunately, NXT. So that way to not give WWE the view to it.
I know. I could fucking attest. I was one of the people that wanted to do both initially. I was like, there's no way they could fuck this up. This is like the best time in wrestling. I'm thinking like, this is gonna be great, right? Everybody else is like, oh no, fuck WWE, or oh no, fuck AEW, and all this other shit. I'm like, no, I want to see both succeed. Let's fucking go. This is two of the greatest fucking shows on television going up head to head on Wednesday nights. I'm ready. Let's go, right? And then NXT started fucking sucking. And I saw it start, the Vince influence. It started then. It started then, before the... And the pandemic was like the last gasp of Triple H having full control. But during 2019, that initial run on USA, I saw it with my own eyes. We all did. Vince was so hands-on with NXT to the point where I puked in my mouth even wanting to watch NXT because I knew what was about to happen. I knew it was inevitably going to happen.
Yeah,
and so I just stayed with AEW and said, fuck everything WWE. That sucked for me because I don't like doing that. That's why I took the fucking break I did back in last year, because it's like, I'm so beyond this point now. If both companies can't succeed, then I want no fucking part of it. That's where I was.
Yeah.
Because I'm so sick of this tribalistic mentality of, one company has to succeed over the other. No, it doesn't. I want both companies to succeed. I wish both companies would succeed. Just don't, everybody...
Yeah.
They're not going to be perfect, don't get me wrong. It's far from perfect. But, now it's like, okay, instead of it being AEW versus NXT, it's AEW versus Raw and SmackDown. The way it always should have been anyway, as far as quality is concerned. So good.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's this way.
But anyhow,
it should be this way. It always should have been this way. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's the end of our first ever pandemic retro. Pretty successful. We haven't... To be fair, we haven't done this wasn't even, the pandemic had been kind of ended anyway, so this is kind of a bit of a cheat, because it's not completely in the pandemic. We haven't even done a WrestleMania 36 yet or anything like that. So,
and I don't plan on it.
But yeah, that's pretty much, well, not right now, but.
No.
But that's pretty much it, guys. And I think we don't have to do plugs, right? Because you have the video.
I have the video. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna play the video, and then we're gonna come back on the screen, and then you're gonna see everybody off. So here's what's upcoming for everything related to For the Win Productions. Here it comes.
Scan the QR codes to see what's upcoming for FTW Productions and what's available on demand right now. Button Masters Stable Wars entire playlist. AEW Revolution Go Home Week, Dynamite and Rampage watch parties. Mistress Audio dramatic readings featuring voice actors from Weymouth Youth Wrestling. Elimination Chamber retrospective. All WrestleMania-themed retros by Wrestling Fortune 44 Incorporated. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order Let's Play Series. WrestleMania 19 Revenge Mode Let's Play Series. All of A Simple Man's Brand Simply Predicting panels. Both episodes of The Don DeMarco Show. AEW Spark, WWE Aftershock, every show week by week. The entirety of the NASCAR Thunder 2004 Let's Play series. Past and upcoming Jeff Meacham Network watch-along coverage. FTW Productions watch party for WrestleMania Go Home Raw. A Simple Take, WWE Simple Takes featuring Cassidy 18 Studios. Super Mario Bros. Z voice acting. Episode 3 coming soon. Breaking news. ATW View Impromptu. WYW Intro and Immortal Stream. Wrestling with Idiocy, Episode 7, our favorite WrestleMania matches. Plugs have concluded. On to the video.
Alright, so that's everything you're gonna see, or have seen, I don't know. I didn't watch the promo thing, so I don't know what's going on.
It's the one that aired during the watch party, right when I fucking thought I started it and then didn't and aired it later. It was that. It was the second ad break. So yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And we will talk to you guys later.
We doing all the classics, you heard it, then I grabbed it. Flow like Method Man, then run like I'm Rabbit. Soon as I hear the bass line, it be my FaceTime. Music's in my veins, so just in case I'm without my iPod or a media player, I'll check my...